speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Welcome, everybody. Oh, man, just when you thought something was fixed, Polly is resting today, so she won't be joining. She's very anxious. That's what happens. And that's what today's stream is all about, anxiety. And basically, anxiety is women, and they cause anxiety. And that's my stream. Thank you very much. See you next week. No, I'm just kidding. So we have our Sam Pal right here, and we've got our Muppet Cup. Do you have a Muppet Cup? You should. Have you considered? You should consider. And that has some lovely Sam Pal in it. I've got some nice cinnamon sunset tea here, because Sunset Sweets had some, so now we have some. And I got some Jordan almonds. Thank goodness. So maybe I'll be chewing on those later. Let's start with our fun little aphorisms from Nassim Taleb. Let's see what we get. Turn to a random location here. For the compassionate, sorrow is more easily displaced by another sorrow than by joy. I like it. Taleb is correct, as usual. Very correct. So, yeah, there's been a lot going on this week. So maybe I'll cover some of that. Vantike, hello. It's good to see you, sir. Glad you liked the hierarchy video. Finally got that done. Sounds like I've got mixed, I didn't have a lot of reviews yet, but it sounds like it's working. So that's good. I know my stream screwed up today because Rumble does something weird, and I don't think I'm streaming on Rumble anymore. Not today. I'll fix it later. I didn't have time to fix it today. It's been a busy day. Ixon Polly was too nervous, too much anxiety, so she's not going to make it. Anxiety is women, and women cause anxiety. That's the whole stream. Sorry, it's all over. I like that joke, so I'm probably going to tell it forever now. Yeah, I mean, there's so many weird, strange things going on. The myth of World War II stuff continues to be mimicked by lesser minds, we'll say, and echoed by them over and over again, which, is useful and not useful at the same time, we'll say. Unfortunate to be sure. A lot of people are just copying a lot of things, and they're copying bad things in many cases, but there's not much you can do about it. I think a lot of people are digging into things. Actually, you know what? I should just read my awesome tweet. I know the tweet is awesome because my good friend Manuel Post, who is in fact a genius, said it was perfect. Now, he's not prone to exaggeration, so yeah, I tweeted out, most of what we see now is just people learning how imperfect the world is. Their video game reality assumptions are breaking down once they actually look, engage, learn, go after nuance, etc. Of course, the spell of nuance remains, something no one has, but also the thing that sparks outrage when given. So if somebody gives you nuance, you get all upset, but you lack nuance, right? Or at least you people who don't understand your position lack nuance. But then if they give you nuance, then you get all upset. That's the world we're living in, guys. This video game reality stuff. I had at some point in my head 3 video game reality videos I wanted to record, and in all the traveling and illnesses, they are lost. But I'll get them all back eventually. I haven't been able to write anything either. I've just been hands down busy. There are now 3 interesting coding agents, so that's been fun. They're in a race. The Google coding agent, by the way, has been running for 5 or 6 days now. I don't even know what it's doing anymore, but it seems to be working. I'm like, oh, I don't know what it's doing. It's off doing its thing, I guess. Running tests and not doing them well, but it's doing them completely. So kind of impressive. So I've been busying myself monitoring all that and buying broken products because everything's broken, and trying to do things because nothing works, and running into all kinds of problems. And it has been hot, 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 hot. And looks like I'm going to go on vacation on the next week. No, 2 weeks, probably, for a few days, although I'll be back in time to do the stream. Or maybe I'll do it from there. But I don't, yeah, we could do that too. I like traveling during the week because no one else is there. But yeah, let's jump right into anxiety, shall we? There's too much to talk about that's happened this week, so I think it's pointless. I mean, everyone's all over the place, and the movie industry is still collapsing. The mainstream media is collapsing. All the leftist TV shows are going out of business. Thank goodness. Things are changing. They're going to get a lot worse. This may seem like a quiet time when good things are happening. Chaos is right around the corner, my friends. And that's part of what's causing anxiety is the change. Just change in the world, change in the way people see things, people looking at things they never looked at before and realizing they're not that video game version, that smooth, clean, perfect way of working. The Epstein files in particular, I don't know how many people I have to explain this to, but there is no federal law, age of consent law. And therefore, the fact that you're a federal territory or a federal jurisdiction, the laws do not work the way you think. Most laws are done by your state, unfortunately. Loopholes abound in the world. And when we find out how things actually work, we get upset. But fundamentally, anxiety is a function of one of 3 things. Okay? Domicide, too much energy, emotional disruption. That's it. Okay? Now, I'll get into those 3 things in a little bit more detail. But what's causing this generalized anxiety for so many people? I'm going to talk about it from the personal perspective first. I've already kind of mentioned the high level. Things are changing, guys. The New World Order is here to some extent. It's a bad way to talk about it, but also stuck within the communication mechanisms that people have, which is part of the problem. So focusing on yourself, so-called individualism, that causes things like domicide, right? It can cause emotional disruption. It can cause you having too much energy because you're not dissipating it correctly. And I'll go in more detail on all of this. But that's the individualism is really causing a lot of this anxiety. I mean, if you're an individual, you are taking responsibility on your shoulders for a bunch of things that are so much bigger than you and happened before you were born, irrespective of your existence, and will continue to happen that way, right? There's a bunch of stuff outside of you. It turns out you live in a world and that was already here, and there's a history behind that, and you won't understand it very well ever anyway. And so it's, you can't see things clearly. You're still a fish in an aquarium to some extent. Another thing that sort of causes uh, anxiety is focusing on the world as physical and apart from yourself, right? And that's materialism. That's what that is. So this world is, these things, and we thingitize things, like the algorithm in YouTube. Look, man, I've got 40 years of tech experience. That ain't how that works at all. I'm sorry. Like, the algorithm certainly does stuff and can do stuff, but algo ain't an agent in the world. And if you post nothing but smiley face videos on YouTube, it will show you nothing but smiley face videos because the algorithm has no choice. Because algorithms don't contain choice. They do constrain things, right? And they do boost things at the expense of other things, but so does everything else. So this isn't saying much at some point. Algorithm actually responds to what it's given, right? And it's tailored to what it's given. And YouTube has gone through a lot of trouble over the better part of a decade to try to tailor the algorithm to give you leftist spew propaganda, and it failed. It absolutely failed them. That's where things like Rumble and Odyssey came from, roughly speaking. But it failed. It doesn't work because it doesn't work. Computers just can't run the world. Sorry. Turns out the only agents are people. Who knew? And then the third thing is putting everything into a category, this dissection of the world. And that's your objectivism, right? So everything can be material and not objective because it could all be physical or made physical, right? You could take algorithm and make it a physical thing, or call it YouTube or the big tech companies, right? These are all instances of materialization. And when you say big tech companies, right, or the big tech consortium or cabal or whatever you want to call them, you are also not just materializing something or trying to materialize something, but you're trying to objectify it, trying to say, oh, this is an object moving in unison with a single purpose or something, or a common purpose. That's not, the world doesn't actually work that way. I'm not saying you don't see aspects of that in the world. Of course you do. It's just they're not where you're locating them because of the individualism and the materialism. You're able to carve up the world. And all of these things are components of scientism. But in scientism, you are apart from the world as an observer of it. You're hanging out in what I like to call objective material reality. OMR, baby. It's as real as it gets in terms of how people are acting, right? You're sort of above the fog as an individual, looking down at the world, judging it. My great shame, it took me many years to figure out Vervaeke's little awakening from the meaning crisis thing. And it was actually staring at me the whole time, and at no point did I get it. Oh, it's called the man above the fog or something. I'm like, oh, that was an obvious sign. Why didn't I see that sooner? I got no idea. Right? Above the fog, judging, can see clearly while everyone below cannot, right? It's the whole science arrogance thing. And it is indeed arrogance. It's arrogance, right? What you observe is the material below you, right? Which you then categorize as objects and relate to them as such because you're the man above the fog, right? And these objects have these properties, and you get to determine which objects go with which objects, right? So you can just slam words together like agnostic atheist, even though that's an impossible situation, right? And you can just live in that world, or so it seems. Intimacy crisis confirmed. That's the intimacy crisis, baby. You can't do any of that stuff. And you do this, or people in general do this, probably you as well, because having knowledge of the world is the highest value. And knowledge, as we all can tell, right, is propositional. I give you knowledge by talking or by reading a book or something, right? I mean, everybody knows that, uh, except the Bible, where it has a proper definition of knowledge. It doesn't involve reading or speaking. Welcome to the propositional tyranny, folks. I mean, Dr. Vervaeke's talked about this before. He's absolutely right. There's a propositional tyranny. He just doesn't understand it. And that causes intimacy problems. Because when you're relying on words to know how people feel, you're going to end up confused and disappointed. If you're lucky, you'll probably end up even worse. So that's what's really going on. I mean, it's this deep, deep arrogance caused by this scientism, which, and I do have a recorded video on this, right? This objectivism, individualism, and materialism. It's all, you fall in one of those holes and you hit the other two for free, right? It's buy one, get two others for free, man. And I don't know why or how, but that's what happens. So what's going on, we'll say, not at the personal level, right? That was all personal stuff that I described, right? Stuff that you can sense sort of for yourself, by yourself on your own, or witness on your own. Well, we'll say probably 2 layers up, but at least at a higher level. Another way to talk about this is the collapse of the myth holding your world together, right? And that materialism that made the mythos, we'll say long before this World War II thing, which is obviously a myth in and of itself because there was no Second World War. There was just one great war with a gap in the middle. That materialism, that precision, accuracy, self-determination that Napoleon caused, see my history videos with Adam, probably all of them, and you'll get the whole picture. Hopefully take notes, because I think you probably need to. That's what's led us into this myth that's now falling apart. And we need that myth, unfortunately. That's the deep problem, is we need the myth. We can't really do without that myth, right? So that's an issue. That's an issue for sure. And that's causing anxiety because people thought they knew how the world worked. They had this nice materialist frame for it. And now that materialism is failing them. It's failing to describe the world. It's failing to describe the things it used to describe. Who was the bad guy in the Great War? Even just the second act. Because we had a Cold War immediately against an ally. Right. So it was never going to hold in that way for that long. Sort of amazing it held as long as it did. And you can see that, you can notice that it was noticeable a long time ago. So when Carl Benjamin was doing the Sargon of Akkad thing, he had these t-shirts made up, right, that said that Star Wars is pro-Jedi propaganda. Well, Star Wars is one of the great sort of pieces of propagandistic media that came out in the framework of the myth of World War II. So he saw it clearly, right? That was pre-fake news virus scam. We're talking 6-7 years ago, something in that order. It was a long time ago, guys. 6-7 years. Wow. So he saw it. He played around with it. He thought it was funny. He's still on that train to some extent, it looks like, and fair enough, right? So this myth has been collapsing for a while, and it's collapsing because the thing that they use to build it, materialism, is failing. It's failing to describe the world. And this is the great genius of Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, was to show you that this doesn't describe the world, that science can't explain a bunch of things, that materialism doesn't cut it when you're talking about the world. And if you look at the world the way it used to be, they had these myths, right? And here's how they all tie together. We can argue about whether or not he does a good job at that. There's people that will argue both ways, by the way. I will argue that he does a good job for the materialists. That will be my caveat there. If you want to know more about that, we have the Jordan B. Peterson 12 Rules for Life book club coming up on Sunday. So feel free to join us. I don't know how many spots I'm going to have for people to join in live, we'll say on StreamYard, but we'll figure that out. The link will be on the Discord, the Mark of Wisdom Discord server. That's an open Discord server, so you can just type in Mark of Wisdom. You should be able to find it, and you can join up there. And we're usually there. Someone's usually there. If you hop in, somebody will probably hop in even. I'm there a lot. I haven't been on it a bunch in the past couple days just because busy, but I try to jump in, especially if someone's there. I'll try to jump in more. That's where we're going to go over some pragmatic approaches along the lines of, we'll say, old Peterson. I'm not a fan of new Peterson, although his new announcement looks good, where he's actually going to give people, advice, sort of old school, if you will. They used to have a lot of advice call-in programs, so now he's doing them with his daughter, I guess. So maybe that will help with anxiety. But the real question is, for us, suppose our materialist myth of World War II is failing us, and all the problems I mentioned earlier that are personal, what do we do about that? Right? Because the real question is, what do we do about this anxiety? How do we break out of this having mode, individualistic materialism that causes objects to oppress us through their propositions? Words are violence, after all, or so I've been told. No wonder everyone is anxious. Look at what the age of Gnosis has done. Knowledge is the highest value, and propositions is the only form of knowledge. What else did you think would happen? How do we recognize anxiety? And now here I have to give a hat tip to Dr. John Vervaeke, of course. And look, Peterson and Vervaeke make all of this happen. None of this happens without them. And I mean that for a lot more things than just my channel. But whatever, we'll constrain it to my channel for the moment. ING words show anxiety. Listen for them in others. Listen for yourself using ING words. Watch how people react when they use ING words or when you use them. In fact, go get a mirror. Say some stuff. Watch your own face for a while. Seriously, it'll do you some good. See how people move in the world. Watch their expressions. Listening to podcasts is great, but watching people when they're talking reveals so much more. That's why people are like, oh, you listen to double speed. I'm like, no. I want to hear the tone exactly. And I want to watch their face at the same time if I can. Now, I wasn't able to do that with the Jubilee podcast, which is now blown up now that they confirmed what I suspected all along and stated before it was confirmed, right? That it was all set up by Hollywood scumbags. Big surprise. Hollywood scumbags. Who knew? But when you watch people, you learn a lot. And, because I'm a pirate and I'm hyperbolic, never listen to what people say. Watch what they do. Watch how they say things. Way more important. That'll tell you a lot more about what's going on. You're going to get anxiety if you listen to what people say and then they don't follow up. A lot of the confusion that you've been seeing in the world is around this massive problem of believing that because principles are a thing and you are principled, that other people will also be principled. And then finding out that they're not principled and calling them out for not being principled and them just not caring and still doing the bad thing. There's a lot of that going on. That's why you have to see how people move in the world. Get acquainted with how you move in the world. You're going to need a mirror for that. Looking in the mirror when you're talking or saying something, even, to yourself, we'll say, that's tough, man. but I think it's vital. I actually think it's vital. You have to kind of realize what's going on, we'll say, in the background of your mind, because there is something going on. And that's part of how you recognize anxiety. You need something to contrast it with. If everybody around you is anxious, say there was a fake news virus scam and that got everybody all worked up for several years, and they told people ridiculous things. I mean, this is all hypothetical, of course, no one would ever do this. Like socially distance, which is probably the most evil thing you could ever tell another human to do, by the way. Physical distancing, I mean, I'm already not a fan, but it's not evil necessarily. Social distancing is evil, and it's not evil. And don't try to redeem it, because that would make you evil too. Don't be evil. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Don't be evil. Don't defend evil. Don't do that. There's no reason to. You shouldn't do that. Don't do that. But notice where anxiety comes about. Uncertainty of speech, that causes anxiety, right? But usually only when physically with other people. So a lot of people love to talk on the internet or whatever, type on the internet, and they're very certain of what they say. But then when they get in person with somebody, not so certain, right? Being around people in person, just being around them, like going to parties, does that make anxiety come out? Is that the individualism? Thinking about an in-person interaction, especially with a new person or a stranger, right? Does that cause anxiety? I mean, not even just for you, but for other people, right? When things bigger than you do stuff that might impact you, like, oh, YouTube changed the algo. And how interesting, right? It's almost as if you aren't part of all these things, but apart from them. Intimacy crisis indeed, right? If you think you're apart from these things, yeah, that's going to cause you anxiety for sure. You have no influence over the algorithm whatsoever, huh? You can't help mediate an interaction with another person. Now, that may not work with all people. Of course not. The world's not a clear, smooth, universal place. I get that, right? You? But you do have a great deal of control over how interactions go. So let's review the big three that I mentioned that cause anxiety. I started with a domicide, a feeling of a lack of home or grounding or a place to stand or a starting point. It causes you to not be able to orient in relation to other things. That's the relativism. Does relativism cause it? Does it cause relativism? I don't care. I'm a pragmatist. That those happen. Let's deal with them because we can, irrespective of which comes first or which causes which. And this is not being part of a hierarchy that can hold you. Now, a lot of people will get involved in something and they know, we'll say unconsciously, because your unconscious mind is way smarter than your conscious mind, unfortunately. Unfortunately, everybody should tell you that, and no one does. I don't know why, but really important, right? And so you'll notice. It's so fascinating. I heard Tony Robbins talk once on some interview, and he was saying, yeah, when I got married, I knew it was the wrong thing and I did it anyway. Like, oh yeah, that happens to people. And it can be more subtle than the I knew sort of a thing, right? It's almost like a little nag in your ear or in the back of your head. And you can notice that, oh, I got involved in this thing, but it's not going to do what I need it to do. It's not going to hold me. I'm not comfortable there, whatever. Unconsciously, you recognize that. And so you'll notice it maybe before it becomes evident, right? But you'll ignore it without noticing. But the anxiety is coming soon. Don't worry. if it's not there already. A lot of times it's there in the back of your mind. You know you're not properly situated. You know you're not where you're supposed to be, or maybe you're in the area you're supposed to be, but you're not in the right place. Like maybe you've been promoted to a place where you're just not going to be able to do the work, or you're not comfortable, or whatever, or you're promoted to a place that you're not good at that. And part of you knows that. That causes domicide and that causes anxiety. You know you're oriented correctly. You know you're not standing in a place. It's not, we'll say, mere homelessness, although also homelessness. And it applies at all the self-similar fractal layers of reality. So it could be at work, it could be at home. You don't feel like you're in a proper place in the family, right? Feel like an outcast, a black sheep, whatever. It could be in a social circle, right? Maybe you're administering something and it's over your head, right? Could just be a new Discord server that you visit. You need to have a place to start from, to stand from, to orient from, in order to interface the world with less anxiety. So that's the importance of domicile, having a home, a grounding, a starting point, a place that you know that you're comfortable in, that you can use to see the world. And it's not relativistic, because that helps no one. But it does make everything worse. So, there's always that. Too much energy. What on earth do I mean by too much energy? I'm depressed. What do you mean too much energy? When your focus is weak, doesn't matter how much total energy you have, you're unable to direct your energy appropriately. And so it spreads out. You go into explore mode. You're not in build mode anymore. You're not in do mode. You're not in get things done mode. That's why a lot of these gym gurus and health guys work. They give you a regime. They give you some focus. Okay, you're going to train to climb that mountain. And in order to train to climb that mountain, here's the procedure. And so procedures can help with this, right? And it can help to train your focus. And then once your focus is trained, then you can work up maybe more energy, right? Or you can work up to a specific type of task, right? Because you build through proceduralization of your life, through structuring your life, how to manage your energy. And lots of things change your energy levels. You've got a glucose cycle, you've got circadian rhythms, you've got all kinds of hormone patterns that go on, right? You get tired after lunch. That's your glucose cycle, by the way. That's not your circadian rhythm. That's different, right? And all these things interact. So if your sleep is off, that's going to cause problems. Once things spread out, they're eventually going to be more than you can handle. And you aren't grounded anymore because things are too spread out. Like the home is the place where you gather the stuff that makes you comfortable. And you get anxious because there's too many possibilities now. Interestingly, you can get anxious with too many bad possibilities, shouldn't be too much of a stretch, or good possibilities, right? That's determined by your emotional valence. Some people see the world in a very positive fashion all the time. Good for them. I don't like those people because I don't see the world that way. But be that as it may, this isn't about me. Too many good possibilities, and you can't do all of them. That can make you sad, even though they're good. It seems like a contradiction. It's not a contradiction, but it might seem like one to the uninitiated. I get that. That's what happens. And that can happen. And it's important to know that that can happen. So you don't want to spread your energy out, no matter how little of it you think you have or how much of it you think you have. You need to contain it, to focus it, to have it gather, not spread out. And procedures help, meditation can help, right? Getting to know, like, very hard to meditate when you're anxious, but if you keep trying to meditate, and maybe meditation isn't the thing, right? Maybe it's prayer for you, or maybe it's just going for a walk or whatever. These are the sorts of things that can help. Emotional disruption. What on earth does that mean? Well, that's caused mostly when you're unable to connect properly with your body, your physical self. Now, yes, too much physicality is dangerous. It can make you individualistic for sure, but also not enough causes anxiety. You'll notice a lot of the gym bros are supremely confident. They have less anxiety. Right. Maybe a little too less. Maybe that strays them into narcissism, which is not individualism. It's totally separate. But physicality gives you a grounding outside of yourself, which allows you to contrast what is in your head with what is not in your head. In other words, reality. Reality is that which objects to your subjective experience, among other things. Without that physicality, you become too in your head, and eventually you give way to the sea, the tidal wave of your chaotic emotions. Your emotions are constrained by your physicality. Sometimes you need to punch the wall and hurt your hand. But usually you can just go for a walk. That emotional dysregulation, because your emotions run free in your head, is a big problem. That's why when people talk about the quote imaginal or whatever, uh, I that's a danger sign for me. People are too in their heads now, and they think they know how the world works, even when they haven't engaged in it at all. These people are talking about how the law works. They've never even stepped foot in a courtroom. There's what's written down on the page, and then there's what the judges do. And let me tell you, there's no overlap between those things at all. That might be a big problem, by the way, but it is happening. So good to know. When you don't get outside your head, and then your video game reality, because in your head you got video games all day long, that is all you have in the imaginal realm, it can be rather shocking when you discover the world does not work the way you thought it did in your head. And that will cause emotional dysregulation for sure. Your certainty goes away. You feel domiciled because you thought you knew how the world worked, and then you looked into it, or something happened and the intended reactions did not manifest. You voted that party in, and they didn't do any of the things they said they were going to do. In fact, they did the opposite. Right. How do we address these issues? Let's start in order with a domicide. Domicide is all about knowing where you are in the hierarchy. Now, there isn't one hierarchy because you don't have one identity, because that's silly. You play in many arenas. I like John Vervaeke's agent arena relationship. The problem is you need to understand two things. There isn't only one arena that any agent is in, and there are no arenas with only one agent. If you can make that upgrade, that is a very useful thing to understand. It also necessitates the idea of more than one identity, one for each arena you're in. Right. And maybe the slight modification, hopefully, only slight, of your identity in any given arena, because agents come and go. Because the agents affect the arena as much as the arena constrain the agents. Dun, dun, dun. The algorithm does not own you. You need to know where you are in each individual hierarchy that you are a part of. That gives you the ability to orient, gives you the ability to stand grounded in a position. If you want to know why people aren't principled, is because they're suffering from domicide. They have no ground to stand on. And so they change their ideas to meet their emotions. What choice do they have? Indeed. How do we fix the energy problem? Well, too much energy or misdirected energy or whatever. Meditation can help, but something like Zen sweeping is better. What do you mean by Zen sweeping? Zen sweeping is something I came up with a zillion years ago to solve this anxiety problem for myself. Pick up a broom and sweep the damn floor, really. Or do the dishes, any motion that is regular enough to become muscle memory within a few minutes, or hopefully it's already muscle memory for you, is good for your anxiety. The reason why that works is very, very simple. When you move your body in a very regular pattern, right? It can be a relatively complex pattern, right? Like the katas, for example, in martial arts. Try to, man, it took me forever to memorize. I think two of them is all I ever got. Um, that is your body sending signals back to your brain that you're grounded, that you're calm. And when your body is calm, it can calm down your mind. And that helps you with the energy problem, energy spreading out. And it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Yes, Ansem, and walking is fine. I mentioned that earlier. Um, I prefer something a little bit more involved than walking, though. Uh, Although walking is always a good option when you can do it. That energy being constrained and used up partly by your body and not all by your mind is very helpful too, because you're keeping the energy in your body and not in your fantasy land. So, what can we do about our emotions? Well, noticing your emotional state, and maybe you need help with that to ask somebody, hey, tell me when I need to calm down, sort of thing, right? Uh, and regulating it by paying attention to your body with exercise, some martial arts, some walking, right? Breathing exercises, things like that can help you. The ultimate grounding, the ultimate way to fight domicide is to be in your skin, in your body, to understand that. You want to know where confidence comes from? I mentioned it before. The gym bros are all pretty confident people, usually overconfident, by the way. Um, they have confidence because they're well grounded in their skin. They have too much because they're paying attention to themselves all the time and not the things that aren't them. Right? There's trade-offs everywhere. I have a whole video on trade-offs, a whole video. Um, but that's okay. Like that that happens. There is a balance that you can achieve where you're not stuck in your head and you're not all in on your body and you're using the two to regulate each other effectively, to regulate yourself technically. And what do these things have in common? They're all the function of the balance between what's in your head and what's outside of you, as mediated through your physicality, breathing, moving, singing, attending to how you feel, noticing other people and how they interact with you, right? Notice the outside in general so you know where you are in the world. Stop to do this occasionally, make it deliberate. These are the components of fighting the anxiety that comes from all of these factors, this individualism, this materialism, this objectivism, this age of gnosis that's thrown us into the intimacy crisis. That is how you fight it. Just going for a walk is a huge improvement. I don't think it's sufficient necessarily, but it's a good start. Breathing exercises. I mean, that's why these things work, right? There was the Wim Hof thing and everyone got big on that. Yeah, I mean, it works. It's not a complete solution, but it's certainly better than no solution, right? And that's what people aren't accounting for. But they should. They should be accounting for it. This anxiety is very much being pushed by the collapse of the myth or mythos of World War II. Very much. The whole world is different from what the mythos predicted or told us. The following that along doesn't work anymore. I mean, even the words don't work. The number of arguments I've had recently about, well, yes, the National Socialists are leftists and people don't believe you. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, they're the National Socialists. They're certainly not conservative right wingers. I don't know what to tell you. Making a bunch of changes. Wasn't that hard to figure out, but for them it is because they're stuck in this flat World War II consensus style. I hate talking about that. It's just so dumb. Way of thinking about the world. And the problem is, as Jonathan Peugeot pointed out, you can't just do away with it. Like, you got to have something take its place. The question is, what will take its place, or will we all die of anxiety? So far, we're dying of anxiety, but that's one of the problems. When you're not observing the outside world, and instead you're looking at how the outside world should be through the lens in your head, in your imaginal realm, well, then of course you know how to solve the Israeli-Palestine conflict, and we should fly you right out there to try it. You'll be dead the minute you set foot off the plane. Of course you can solve Ukraine-Russia. It doesn't make any sense at all. It makes perfect sense. The fact that you don't understand it is meaningless. Just one of so many hundreds of millions of other things you don't understand at all. But you think you do. That's the problem. The you think you do part. And the number of people who, when faced with the fact that they obviously are just plain wrong about something, can't go there, is a sign of a deep divide. It's not the divide from, we'll say, their point of view to mine. I mean, that exists. It's their divide of them being in the world. Right? If you think that, this world event that's happening is an easy thing to resolve, or that it's like one thing, it's just really about, what is a Russian person and, Ukraine's sovereignty or something, then you just don't know enough about the world to be commenting. The number of people that I'm going to write about this, and also probably do a video on it if I get the energy to do so. The number of people that do this weird trick where, you know them and you're talking to them and you're telling them a story about someone they don't know, and they side with that other person. And it's like, okay, bro, but like, you and I know each other and I'm here now. I don't know why you're siding with the stranger all the time, but that's not good. You don't know them. You should not side with something you don't know. That's fantastically dangerous. And I'll tell you, that's an epidemic. You want a pandemic? That's a pandemic. That's a nightmare pandemic. That's worse than any virus or disease by far, because you're basically preferring the stranger all the time over the person you actually have a physical connection with in a moment, maybe for years. This is not good. This is really not good. And we're stuck in that. No wonder people are anxious. They're disconnected from the people that they used to be connected to, or they thought they were connected to. And these connections are being broken over words? What? I mean, I could maybe make a conservative guess of the thousands of times that my good friend Manuel Post has told me to F off. But I don't care. And it's not that I don't think he did mean it in the moment. It's just not that important. Right? Your political position, which if it's leftist at all is wrong, I'm not gonna be worked up about it. I'll still, like, sit down and make you a hamburger at the house, or whatever. Like, I don't know what to tell you. This We're so wrapped up in words. We're so lies. It's not lies, Manuel. I've done it to you too. Um, we're so wrapped up in words, and we're so wrapped up in believing those words, and we're so wrapped up in the importance of those words when they don't correspond to reality at all. And then when that's pointed out, because we have no frame of reference, we're living in this age of gnosis, bang, more anxiety. And we spread out again because anxiety is a so-called virtuous cycle, right? It feeds itself, right? Anxiety begets more anxiety. Oh, it's reciprocal. Freaking, oh, stop misusing mathematical terms, please. You're making me sick. Anxiety is easy to fix. The problem is that you have to find your place in the hierarchy. You have to work on your focus. You have to understand your emotional states and those of others, right? I can tell you where someone stands by looking at what they do. It's not that hard. People are always like, "Oh, that's amazing." I'm like, You really can't do that, huh? Like, I don't know how. This is easy." But I mean, I'm dyslexic, so going backwards is really simple for me because I do it without wanting to all the time. Um, but yeah, it's really handy. Like, you can just tell where people are, and then you know where they're going too, because you can go, "Oh, they got here because of that." I saw Vervaeke blow up. I knew he was gonna blow up. We knew. Manuel knew. We discussed it many times back in the day, and sure enough, pretty much 100% prediction. Took a few years, granted, but yeah, yeah, we knew that was gonna happen. I'm sad that it happened. I lost a teacher. I'm still pissed off about that, but what am I gonna do? Right? We had like freaking, what was it? I think it was weekly Q&As with him for quite a while. We had 6 days a week of teaching from him for a little while, and then it went to 5 days a week. We had lessons every Monday. That was every other Monday, right? We lost all that. We lost all that. Manuel Post can confirm sad times. It's sad times now. It was good times then. We had this Q&A with him on the Awaken from Meaning, all gone. And a lot of those people, when they lost access to Vervaeke as he pulled away, probably to write, busy writing letters to Hermes or something, which is not good, by the way. I don't know why everybody kind of just, oh yeah, that would alarm me, and I would say, please, please, John, don't do that, please, please, pretty please. This is not good. Hermes, Hermeticism, the occult. I don't know why people don't see that. Anyway, that caused anxiety, and it caused the whole community to freaking blow up, which also was completely predicted. Happened on Bridge of the Meaning too, right? Same reasons, roughly speaking, and some additional ones. When you lose the thing holding you together, right? When you lose the cohesive force of something, it blows up. And that causes anxiety because you no longer have a home. Your domicile is complete. When you don't have emotional regulation, you will defend the thing as it's blowing up, in spite of the fact that it's blowing up, and probably make it worse in the process. When you don't have good emotional regulation, you'll prefer the stranger over the person in front of you. When you don't have focus, you can't see clearly. You get too much energy running around in the wrong places, and it's not directed well enough to keep you together, to help you stand tall, to help you be grounded. All of these things are factors. All of these things are important. And all of them can help you with anxiety. And on that note, I shall cease my monologue, mostly because my mouth is dry and I need a drink. Now, what I had planned was somewhere, I don't know where, I seem to have actually lost this, which is surprising, actually, be the first time in a long time I lost anything. I had a course outline for anxiety. And if I thought enough people wanted a course on how to treat anxiety, I would probably try to put one together because I have a bunch of tools and a bunch of stuff and a bunch of things to say about it. And you can do punch cards and workbooks and all kinds of things. If people are interested in that, they should let me know either in the comments on this video or on the Discord server or whatever. And if you want to fight some of your anxiety, you should come to the 12 Rules for Life Pragmatic Book Club. Whether you attend on the StreamYard or not, it would be lovely to have you. So, there is my anxiety. Do it. Maybe I shall. It's a lot of work. I really want to find what I had done, even though I probably did it a year and a half ago now, or maybe just a year ago. I forget. Because it was good. Like it wasn't horrible or anything. I just didn't get around to finishing it. So with that note, feel free to join me, and we can talk more about anxiety in person. I shall post the link here on the Navigating Patterns YouTube channel, which I think is the only place I can do that now. Stupid StreamYard changing everything up. It's okay. We didn't lose that many viewers from the original Randos United channel. Although, and we didn't lose that many from Rumble, although I didn't know that about Rumble, and had I known, I would have fixed the Rumble thing, but did not have time. It was a busy day. I got a phone call from someone. I've been trying to get in touch with him for like 3 days. I thought he was dead. Nope, he's fine. I'm gonna go up next month and visit him. He's out in near the Outer Banks, actually. It'll be quite pretty. It's good time to go. To go and enjoy and appreciate and all that nonsense. Yeah, if anyone wants to hop in, feel free. Manuel, I am surprised that you are awake, but I'm glad to see you. Anselman, what did you say? Yes, observation, looking at nature too. Yeah, light through trees, colors changing on hills, birds. Anselman, don't go too fast. Just get them outside first, bro. Like seriously. Like a lot of these problems is, you tell somebody with anxiety to like go out and experience nature, and that gives them more anxiety. So you got to be careful. Like, yeah, why don't you just go for a walk outside for a little while, and then like work them up to it. Cause I think that's one of the main problems is that people are like, oh yeah, you can do this, right? And they just flood people with stuff. And then that scares them, rightly so. Announcement, I've had a run-in on live with socialists denying the fact that El Duce and Little Mustache Man were socialists. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And that they're stuck in the problem is we really don't understand how deep the hierarchy is. Like a lot of people need a flat, simple myth. They need a mustache man, right-wing, bad myth. They can't handle anything else. That might be inconceivable to people, but there are people like that, and there are a lot of them. And you can like call them NPCs or whatever. We're all NPCs on something, though, so that's not helpful. What would be helpful is to find a way to include them in your worldview instead of just dismissing them as NPCs. When people call others NPCs, at least I know they're the bad guy. And they think they're not, but also they're the bad guy. So that's good to know. We really need to get back to an enchanted, integrated world where we can be together, right? CC Mool, can you explain briefly the difference between fear and anxiety and how you're using the term? Sorry if you already covered it. No need to apologize. Look, fear can result from anxiety. Fear can also result from danger, right? So the fact that you feel fear might be justified or it might be anxiety. Anxiety is not justified. People use them interchangeably. Like people do that with anger too, right? A lot of people like, oh, Mark, you're angry. I'm like, you know what? You've never seen me angry. If you saw me angry, you would cease to exist immediately because this is nothing. I mean, Absolutely nothing. First of all, I don't have a state called anger. I only have rage, and you don't want to see that. You really don't want to see that, right? So fear is the same thing. Fear is reading and understanding, and not everybody can do this. H.P. Lovecraft. The only thing I ever read that made me afraid was H.P. Lovecraft. In fact, H.P. Lovecraft put more fear into me than anything else ever, I think. And I've been in like near death car accidents and all kinds of things. But I mean, I went into anaphylactic shock and like my heart stopped. And I felt it, by the way, and came out of that. I wasn't afraid at all. I was like, oh, it looks like I'm going to die here at this abandoned train station. Lovely. Um, no fear. Uh, I passed out once, like just well more than once, but like I passed out from a heart arrhythmia once. Just woke up on the floor and then couldn't speak. Like I was moving my mouth and these sounds were coming out and they didn't resemble speech. And I was very confused because I know what I said and my mouth did not make those sounds. And I was like, what? First of all, how am I on the floor? I think I'm on the floor. Where am I? Right? Like I seem to be laying down. And second of all, like, that didn't make me afraid at all. And I wasn't anxious either. Right? So these things are different. Anxiety can cause you fear, and it usually does, right? But not always. I mean, some people are just anxious, and what they do is they run around and they reorganize my house for no reason. Um, hypothetical. Um, some people when they're anxious, they go for a run, and sometimes that kind of helps them even, right? But not always, by the way, because the source of the anxiety might still be there, and the source of the anxiety might not be something that can be addressed by going for a run or going out to the club, or shooting up some heroin. I wonder where all of these problems come from. Rise in things like suicide and drug addiction are largely linked to an increase in anxiety. Now, is that because there's actual anxiety and that's what's causing the problem? Or is it, oh, domicide causes anxiety and suicide? I don't know. I don't care. I'm a pragmatist. Really interested in mechanisms when a solution is at hand, irrespective of the mechanism. Sometimes that's not the case. With anxiety, it is the case. Anxiety is this detachment from your body, right? This misunderstanding, this ungrounding from your body and from your functions. This is why a lot of people assuage anxiety with music. Music helps to tie things together. It ties lots of things together. And the best type of music, of course, is the human voice. So you should sing a lot. That's actually what you should do. We used to sing more. We don't sing so much anymore. I hope that helps you, CC. If not, ask another question and I'll do my best. Vantike, Peterson once called anxiety something like an indicator of sudden increase of entropy. Is this a good way of thinking about it? No, Peterson is not telling you something that is useful in that instance. Now, most of the things Peterson says I agree with, and he's great. No. A better way to think about it in terms of entropy, if you want to think about it in terms of entropy, which I don't recommend you do. I just did my monologue. Go back and listen to it again. Actually, honestly, guys, like take notes and listen to it again. Right. that's be helpful. Then you won't need my anxiety course if I get enough motivation and interest to do one. Also tell me how many millions of dollars you're willing to pay. If you want to think about it in terms of entropy, you have to think about it in you noticing more entropy in the world. That will cause you anxiety. Absolutely. And that's actually what causes anxiety, technically speaking, right? So you don't get the newspaper, there's no internet, your anxiety goes way down for most people in most cases, right? A little bit different for certain women alone in the woods. Anxiety might go up, might not, might, right? More likely to. Me alone in the woods, anxiety goes way down. Me alone in the woods, surrounded by bears, no anxiety whatsoever. Don't care. I'll just talk to the bears. It'll be fine. I actually think that way. Um, might get eaten by the bears, but I actually won't care. So, different problem. When you start to notice things like there's a war in the Middle East and there's a war in Ukraine and there's all these people dying in various countries in Africa. Okay. The amount of entropy you know about just went up. But like, well, what good is that? It was there before, but it wasn't really impacting you directly enough to care about. But now you care about it because someone propositioned you. Ooh, this is the same. You'll hear this, right? You've heard this before. This is an internet thing a while ago, in fact, right? You don't have to have an opinion about everything. This really confuses people, right? Because Mark's opinionated and he's arrogant and all these things. I'm like, really, dude? Like, me? It's like, okay, I know what's wrong with you now. And then they'll ask me about something. I'll be like, I don't know anything about that. I don't have an opinion. You have to. They start yelling immediately. Immediately start yelling. You have to have an opinion on that. And I can't even hear them because I'm like, okay, let's just calm down. Just chillax a bit here, you know? Hey, take a breath. And they usually spurg out and leave because they're so upset because I'm so opinionated and I won't give an opinion on something. And that confuses them because they think I'm opinionated. So they're just looking for opinions. It's like, no. Sally Joe, guess my low reading comprehension protects me while reading H.P. Lovecraft. You don't want to comprehend Lovecraft. That is for sure. And actually, that's kind of the point. The games are like that too. There are these games based on H.P. Lovecraft's work. It's the same thing. Like, you can't win the games ever. They're cool games, apparently, but not good for paranoid people. Ansem, and yes, indeed, sing. Sally Joe, just re-ask questions on Mark already covered. It helps him know the material better. No, Sally, don't do that. Don't torture me. Don't torture me with your primordial presuppositions. Freaking Ixon. One of these days, I'm going to hunt him down. Oh my goodness. Yeah, just lots of anxiety. I hate it when people misuse words. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts because we're overvaluing them so much. And then that's causing all this wacky behavior. Imagine calling yourself an agnostic atheist and then the freaking AI tries to justify it. I'm like, okay, AI, but if you read a dictionary first, you wouldn't have said that about those words. They don't go together because they have mutually exclusive properties about them, you muppet. Anselman, there is anxiety for loved ones who are suffering or have other problems you can readily resolve. Exactly. Moves you to seek help in prayer and getting peace, which you hope to pass on to them in some way. Exactly. Well said, sir. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the best way to get rid of your anxiety is to find somebody that needs help and go help them. Nick, that's it. Just find somebody that needs help, that like they need help cleaning their house or watching the kids or they need a ride somewhere. Yeah, go do that. And then you're not thinking about Ukraine or Israel or Iran or some country in Africa I've never heard of, or the latest genocide, because that's always happening, by the way. Or at least in modern parlance, there's always a genocide going on somehow. You don't need to think about those things. You can keep yourself busy with work alongside other people, and that will reintegrate you into the world, solve the domicide problem. And from a strong home, all things can be met better. It doesn't mean you're going to win. Some people get wiped out. But there's a thing to the whole die with honor idea, you know? There's I forget who it was, one of the Romans in the Carthaginian War, if I remember correctly, got captured. And they told him, we want you to go back and we want you to deliver this message. And he goes, up yours, I ain't doing it. And they said, if you don't go back and deliver the message, then we'll kill you here and now. And he says, I am not telling my fellow Romans to give up or dishearten them in any way, shape, or form. And they killed him. And he was okay with that. And I think that's correct. Like, yes, we all die. So it's how you die, right? Or how you live, rather, that matters, right? Like what you die for matters, not that you died. Like that's going to happen. Everybody. So everybody gets one. You get one, and you get one, and you get one, and you get one. It's what you do before you get one that matters. Vantike. So you didn't like my explanation, huh? So is anxiety an unhealthy attitude towards uncertainty? No. Is the solution understanding what is and isn't in your control? Well, that can help. What is in the control of other people, authorities, and God? Well, maybe. I mean, I've met a lot of people who know they can do nothing about a situation of foreign war, for example, who are still anxious about it, even if they trust the authorities. And that's because they're paying attention to it. Because as Jonathan Peugeot has said, the world is attention. And so the bottom line is you don't pay attention to those things. Instead, you occupy yourself with somebody who needs help around you and go help them. You won't be thinking about the stupid Afghan war pullout and the repercussions from it. These are really important to think about. So, just for a quick review, I will go back to my original statement, mainly because, and I did come up with these notes like today, halfway through the day. But it's not like this is a topic I know nothing about. As I said, I already designed a good portion of a course about this. Anxiety is a function of one of three things: domicide, right? Not feeling like you have a home, an orientation, a grounding, right? Too much energy, right? Or at least however much energy you have is spread out in too many places, right? And emotional dysregulation. That's what anxiety is. It's one of those three things, or possibly combinations of those three things. That's it. It's that simple. You don't need to get more complicated. Bong fade. I use hobbies to assuage anxiety. You can certainly do that. It helps to have something grounding you. The problem with hobbies is if they're not community cooperative hobbies like shooting pool or, going to spar with somebody in the gym, then they're not as good as things where you interact with other people. There's plenty of hobbies what you can do with other people. And that's not to say you shouldn't have hobbies that are yours and yours alone, right? There's a whole thing about the man cave. Man caves are real and you need them. Women shouldn't have caves because they go insane. But men will go insane without them. Just one of the big whopping. Peterson likes to talk a lot about the overlap and the number of things. Hello, Castle, that aren't different between men and women and how there's this huge overlap. Peterson fails to mention, which is a flaw of his, the things where we're completely different, like caves. Women in cave, insane. Man doesn't go in cave, insane. Sorry, I don't know what else to tell you. Is that 100%? No, but it's 99.9%, and we should pay attention to that instead of the exceptions. Everyone's paying attention to the exceptions, and I mentioned earlier paying attention to the outsider, right? So they're preferring to redeem somebody they've never met over me who they've known for years and who's talking to them physically in person. That's a weird thing, man. Like, that's strange. We've never been like that in society before. So these are all linked ways of thinking. You need to connect to the world. You need to re-enchant the world. And the way you do that is by having Castle on and saying hi, because he can talk about his perspective of the world, which is completely different from mine. First of all, he lives in Pennsylvania. Second of all, he lives on the freaking New Jersey border, which is just a weird part of Pennsylvania for sure. He's not even Pennsylvanian at that point. But he has a different life experience. He unfortunately was traumatized by having to live in California when he was young. Like it's a mess. It's a mess. I think he's still trying to talk to whales, even though there aren't any near him. How you doing, Castle?
I'm doing okay. I'm categorically calm right now, and
Excellent.
as I
You are
usually am.
you are the least anxious person I've ever met. So
Really?
yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's just I've really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the monologue, which of course I listened to at the 2.15 times speed. Completely against your recommendation, by the way, in the
course.
monologue. I heard it perfectly fine. You know, the whole thing you said, oh, you want to hear the tone of voice. You really want to
Yeah.
kind of get how they said it and everything. I just slow it down in my brain as I'm listening to it at high speed. So it's totally manageable. But
Maybe you do. Maybe you do.
Yeah.
I don't trust any of that, but
that's fine.
yeah.
But
You can do what you want. It's okay.
Thank you. I probably will. But otherwise, I don't know. It's been an interesting week. A type of week that probably would normally induce anxiety, for most, I think. But honestly, all in all, pretty good. I mean, wrapped up, so I'm very happy about that. And I think there's just a lot of elements that you touched on, and of course, there's a ton of overlap with the hierarchy video, which of course I listened to / watched today, and did not get time to actually give all my notes. I may or may not take some time, throughout this to kind of scatter some of that out where it overlaps. But honestly, just I really appreciated the, especially very recently, this thing about using the hobbies, especially cooperative hobbies. I've noticed for sure one of the things that's helped a lot, and you see a ton of hierarchy in this as well, is I've been doing volleyball on Mondays, and that's been kind of interesting thing that's been going on for a couple of months now, and hopefully we'll just do that in perpetuity. But there's so many opportunities to have, if you had anxiety, to have that kind of taken away. So it begins with a little bit of structure where everyone is gathered, people cooperate together to actually set up the nets inside the thing. You get everything kind of on there. Everyone agrees on what rule set is being used. And then you have teams are set up, so then you get situated with a random group of people, and then you get shuffled throughout the entire thing. And that is being done by authorities who are kind of doing this, who are within the same age group and everything. And so the hierarchy winds up pretty much presenting itself as the people who are either usually the most reliable or the most trustworthy to be key holders, that type of thing.
Right.
Which is not always the same people. And, a lot of times being part of that hierarchy kind of depends on not only your ability to be constant in, consistently showing up and showing support, but also your support of the people who exist in the hierarchy. So interestingly enough, if you want to kind of be in that higher level of the hierarchy, you have to actually support it in some sort of way and be consistent about that. And it turns out that the people that are doing that, because they've got kind of the support of the people that are below, who are just the normal players, and then you have the people at the top who are kind of recognizing that there's no anxiety there, right? Like the anxious people, if there are any, are the ones who are doing the least amount of participation and cooperation with the structure.
Right. And they often don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes them more anxiety, effectively. Right. It's that virtuous cycle, that reciprocal. I hate that word. It's not even wrong. It's just applied incorrectly and to no good effect. Right. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, participation in the hierarchy is the thing that solves anxiety in all cases. Right. It's just there's things you can do at a personal level to get you to the point where you can make the next step, which is to kind of reach out and work with other people, right? And that gets you to the next step, which gets you into a hierarchy where you can be comfortable, and that gets you to the next step, right? So on and so forth. And I think Sally might be right. I feel like Castle just keeps anxiety in the moat. Is this true?
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. It's just there's probably a sphere of negative influence that circles around me that you have to either be at a far enough distance or close enough to get caught. You have to be in the eye of the storm or completely clear of it. So
there you go. But, Castle is the eye of the storm, confirmed. Excellent.
To add that to my resume. But
yeah. Well, that's why the participation with others is so important. But you do have to start with these personal practices first.
Hmm.
And that's why they're so effective, but they're also, like for Viki and these clowns, a lot of the time they're like, "Oh, this doesn't scale." And I'm like, "No, you're just missing steps." Like it scales just fine, but you're missing steps. And they're usually referring to one of two things. Either we can't make people do this even though it's good for them. Fair enough. Uh, and this doesn't fix the problem all by itself. And that's usually what they're saying when they say it doesn't scale.
Hmm.
And they don't know that's what they're saying because they're a little dumb. So
You
yeah,
know, the practices thing is always important, right? I mean, you have to kind of, we've got the 12 Rules for Life book club, so I'm not going to like spoil this that's coming up, but you have the whole thing of like the hierarchy of the lobsters, and like their kind
right.
of their hormone levels changing depending on whether or not they've won or lost a fight, that type of thing. And I mean, and we've kind of talked about this in other contexts of the thing of just make sure that you make your bed in the morning, you brush your teeth, you just kind of rack up all these very mundane wins so that even if you screwed everything else up, at least you had a few things. And so even
Right.
if you are actually a lobster, you can still kind of say like, well, like 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And eventually I think, when you're having to scale or you start encountering a larger amount, whether it's higher quantities of these types of conflicts or greater severity of the types of situations that you get in, you need to start kind of offsetting that with some sort of either increased quality and quantity of those things that you're getting. And I think one of the things that tends to keep me calm is the fact that I keep on cutting out stuff and then replacing it with stuff that people would maybe even just consider like punishment, like just
Right.
lots of these things that are very mundane, just very, very structured things to the point where I've eliminated probably most of my YouTube subscriptions. I've eliminated a ton of time that I would normally spend on entertainment or whatever for kind of repetitive stuff, exercise practices, these sorts of things, to the point where it takes up most of my day. But the plus side is that the quality of the things have dramatically improved. And when I get struck with a bunch of very negative things that happen over and over again, I am completely walled in. Like there's just, you could just keep on doing it. And it's just, like I'm aware, but I don't feel it as much.
Yeah, you have that grounding. I want to address this, Bong Fade. What do you think about social anxiety? I mean, I kind of covered this, right? The mistake people make with social anxiety is the following. Okay, so you have a friend who shuts himself out of cooperative hobbies. Why? Well, again, if you're not put together, right? So if you have a person that's broken apart from their body, we'll say, but also just in general, they're not a self anymore. They're kind of scattered. Throwing them in a group is not good. Like that's not good, right? They need to get together first in their body. And that's why all the steps I get, I mean, it's like, I hate to break it to you, but like I structured this very carefully on purpose. So go through it again and take notes, right? So you'll notice the progression is the personal out to the larger issue, right? This is something you have no control over, the collapse of the myth, right? And back to the personal, right? You have to deal with 3 things to get rid of anxiety, all 3 of those things. Now, fortunately, the way to get rid of all 3 of those items is roughly the same. And you can do it, right? It's not something that's, we'll say, impossible by any means, but you have to start by fixing the person first. They've got to get an exercise regime, a breathing thing, something to get them started. Just one. Just get them one of those things. Don't give them 4 of them. That's not good. If they have anxiety, 4 things makes them 4 times more anxious than just doing one thing. Right? The other thing is to fix your sleep. Very important. I do have a paper on that, which I've redone somewhat. But getting into a regular pattern of sleep, the biggest 2 things you can do, right, is Go to bed at the same time every day and wake up at the same time every day. 7 days a week. Not 5, not 6, 7, right? And right, ramp up and ramp down. Don't do physical activity right after you wake up or at least an hour before bed. Right. Leave that as quiet time. Reading, contemplation, prayer, whatever, meditation, doesn't even matter, right? But ease into your day and ease out of your day. Right? Ease into your night. Right? Ease into your day, ease into your night. Just that will help you. But you have to ground yourself. You have to start paying attention to your body. And then once you pay attention to your body, that will help you to at least be in shape to rid your anxiety by getting out. Right? That's really important. Sally Joe, not such a big deal being a bottom of the hierarchy, one place if you're mid in several others. Look, being at the bottom of the hierarchy is a blessing. CEOs do this all the time. They're like, I'm not the boss today. You guys tell me what to do, right? A lot of CEOs, especially really good ones, they have other like volunteer jobs where they're not in charge of anything and they just get told what to do. And that's really calming because they don't have to worry about the details. And if they screw up, it's not their fault. So they don't care. And that's, really important. Sleep, hydrate, move your body. Yeah, I mean, all those things are important, but it's the deliberation of it. It's the deliberateness. It's the paying attention. Like I was very serious about get in a mirror and then say certain things and see what your face looks like. Like that's actually really helpful, right? Because it reattaches you to your body to things you didn't know were happening. That's super important. It's not trivial. And it shouldn't be scary, right? Sally Joe, morning and evening, prime time to bother people on the Navigating Pattern Discord. Yeah, Market Wisdom, the Market Wisdom server. Yep, we are there during those times. Although mornings have been tough for me. I have not been waking up correctly still. What's going on with that? But not happy about it. I really need my mornings back. Although at least it's getting smoother. But I got to get up early. I got to start getting up at 7 again, man. I can't be getting up at 9. It's killing me. Too much to do.
Yeah. I've been feeling my mornings taking a slight hit, like 30 minutes about. I think at the worst about an hour at one point because I like to budget myself a decent amount of time before work. And I have like all of the other structure is holding, but I've been feeling kind of just like everything kind of compressing just a little bit on that point. So I'm hoping to kind of recover that for next week. But yeah, it was a tough week. But I think that was it wasn't a failure point. It was just things had to compress a little bit. It meant smaller breakfasts, that were easier to cook or not have to cook type of thing. But otherwise, everything else kind of remained. So, I mean, sometimes like it's difficult to maintain it, 100% across time. But at least if you're maintaining most of the structure, it doesn't break.
Yeah, I think people too, they get caught up because of the video game reality in no cyclicality. And I'm like, no, the world is supposed to be cyclical. There's supposed to be seasons. There's supposed to be days that go better than other days, right? You need those structures to deal with that, right? So that, yeah, they sag a little under the weight of you waking up late or whatever, but at least you've got a process and a set of procedures to follow, right?
No.
And a lot of the times, I mean, if you really want to describe, and it's just a description, right? It's not technically useful, but it's fun to have a good, reasonable description. If you want to describe a lot of the problems, it's we're proceduralizing things we shouldn't and dropping procedures on things that need them. Right? And that causes, all kinds of problems. Father Eric, I am a structure fan. Yes, you should be. But in Breath of the Wild, you get a blood moon every 28 in-game days. Yes. Yes. I think that, and there's so many cycles. I mean, I kind of mentioned, right, there's the glucose cycle and there's the circadian rhythms. There's at least 4 major cycles that you go through in the day. the problem is that when you don't recognize the cyclicality because you're used to the video game, you think it's a bug, but it's a feature. And then it's not good when you try to proceduralize cyclical things, right? Without just accepting, oh yeah, it's whatever. Like I'm gonna be tired after lunch. Like it's gonna happen, right? But then you don't have procedures for waking up and going to sleep. That's a big problem, right? Or you don't have procedures for, oh, yeah, my heart's going too fast. I need to go for a walk. Or, you need procedures to deal with things as they come up. So you don't proceduralize your life on a clock. You proceduralize your life on sets of events. Some of those events you tie to a clock, like sleep. But most of them you don't tie to a clock at all. Like when you feel anxious, go do the dishes or sweep the floor or do a kata or something, do some karate, test out your 10-point blocking system. I don't know if they still call it that, but that's how I learned it. These things are important. But we've proceduralized the wrong parts of life in some sense. And again, that's just a description, right? It's helpful to see it that way, I think. Otherwise, I wouldn't give you a description. But also, it's only a description. It doesn't tell you how to fix anything. The fix is to pay attention to things you should proceduralize and know that they're not tied to time, and the things you should. And understanding things like the Pomodoro technique, which I really enjoy, except his time frames are off. And maybe his time frames work for most people. I have no idea. I'm not most people at all. But being able to, because the Pomodoro technique technically adds cyclicality back into your life. That's all it does, which just cracks me up. I'm like, or you could just live life and then you don't need the Pomodoro technique. But it's good to be deliberate about things sometimes too, especially when you're bootstrapping. Like if you didn't have that, it makes sense to add it. And so I went in, about the Mind Palace Castle. You've heard of those Mind Palace techniques. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So because I have most of my life just been completely obsessed with how crappy my memory is, how crappy my memory is, right? It's really, really good. It's not good enough for me though. I'm like, no, I need to remember everything exactly all the time. I've been this way my whole life. Right. And so I went and I started to study the Mind Palace stuff when it first came out billions of years ago. And then the book I like the most about it is called Moonwalking with Einstein, which I think is just a fun. So I tried those techniques and they didn't work. And the reason why they didn't work is because my memories are far more connected than that method. They already are. So that's why it wasn't working. I'm like, no, this is an enhancement. It's a downgrade. My memories already overconnect, which, is why I'm able to be so ridiculous and funny all the time, because people say stuff and I'm just connecting it to all these things it has no business being connected to. And then sometimes I go, oh, this is an opportunity to be really stupid. Let's be really stupid. And so, yeah. And I do that pretty much all the time. So usually to other people, which can be quite fun if they can relax and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with the Mind Palace thing, and I'm actually glad that you said, because I had always kind of felt, I was like, I understood what the thing was. I tried kind of practicing a little bit, but I just thought like it really is just so one-to-one, and it's really hard to just always kind of just come back like, okay, I'm going to clear all of the other noise and then just have this, and it's just I can't really slow down like that. Like that's an advantage for people that can do it, I guess, but
well, you're supposed to build up to it, because once you build up the skill, it becomes automatic.
Yeah.
But that takes like a year or more. Like it takes a really long time, because you got to like, oh, room 4 is blue, and that, and in room 4 there's a blue comb, and that come on.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it winds up being that just I always find that if I actually find something genuinely interesting or I actually care about something, then I usually just I remember it enough to be able to either find my way back or point it just enough towards it. Like I'm
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll remember something just enough to paraphrase the point,
Yep.
and then I just
Yep.
kind of realize like, oh, that was actually enough. The person didn't, and if they want to do their homework or like I'm good at research, so it's like, well, if you got 10 minutes, like I can get you the actual citation. Like, that's not bad. But
Taking notes is a superpower. I have a video about that.
yeah,
Um,
there was a point after you said that I like. So I do take notes. In fact, that's part of my job. But the thing is that my note taking style is very disposable. So I'm really good at just having a ton of information in front of me, and it's readable later. But because it's so high volume,
yeah.
and the way that I do it, I'm not doing it to preserve quality necessarily.
Right. Right.
I'm using it almost like kind of a temporary mind palace, like a
Right.
mind motel room.
Mind
And
motel.
so I just kind of do that, and then it's totally disposable. And once they change the sheets, it's brand new. But yeah, so I wound up having a whole thing where my entire desk here was just full of a bunch of this loose leaf paper that had really solid notes on it. But I wound up having to I reviewed a bunch of them at one point and then just threw most of them in the trash because I realized, oh, I integrated this, or I actually wrote the thing that I was going to do that on, or whatever. But it just turned out I had a ton of trash all over my desk.
Notes are weird for me. I mean, sometimes I've got a bunch of notes. There's notes posted on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server. There's notes on the Arc of Wisdom server. I should probably collate them at some point, but I have tons of notes all over. We've got the notes file that's 300 plus pages still. It's a mess. We need to go through it one of these days. Hopefully, Manuel and I will go through it again and finish categorizing everything. We're halfway done, to be fair, but also we're only halfway done, and it took us a long time to get it halfway done. But my problem with regular notes, like when I write them down, I don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't revisit them because once I write something down, it's over, man. It's in my brain. So
It's like you're writing it inside your head. Like you've got the two microcosms going on, and it's just like, well, that's actually going to come up a little bit in this book club. That's coming up. This thing of posturing, not just posture as in standing up straight, but also like positioning
right.
something. And it's just like, oh, you can kind of snipe the self-similar practicality right through the layers. If you do one thing at a particular layer, and if you like really connect to that, you can get it like interiorly and then exteriorly.
So you're going to be joining me in the book club on Sunday?
Yeah, I guess I have to.
Excellent. Well, that's good because I'm going to need your help because you've got a bunch of good tips that I don't have. So that'll be awesome.
Like you said, it's going to be practical. My whole thing was I was afraid of the book club at first because I was worried it was going to devolve into me lit critting Peterson lit critting. And I was like, I almost didn't get in there. And then you said practical, and I was like, okay, yeah. And I saw your video on the structure thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's all pragmatic. So yeah, we won't be dealing with. Oh, Father Eric's going to be on the road then.
You can listen.
You can listen in, sir. You can, or you can somewhere on I-94, no doubt. Yeah. Well, I've done streams while driving. It's not a big deal as long as you don't look at the camera, just look at the road instead. Not a big deal. Actually, the last few times that I was on the road during Father Eric streams, somebody else is driving, so I was able to go that way. But I've also done it. Oh, that's right. Do you even remember my phone? Yeah, sorry, Father. That's right. Your phone can't do anything. He's got a light phone. Thing is.
Oh, nice.
It's great. It's the non-distraction phone, so you can't do things with it. And it's just an excuse to pull over for a couple of hours midstream and take a break. That was like really helpful, Castle. On the way to your house was like, we stopped in Wisconsin at that shrine for like 2 hours because it's a half a mile walk or something up to we didn't even go all the way up.
No.
Yeah, it's like we took a mile walk in the middle of our journey.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And that
right.
was just day one. And then we unfortunately stayed in Indianapolis, which turned out to be a mistake because Indianapolis is just more south side of Chicago, only not in the same state. But who knew? Until I went out there, I couldn't have known that. And now I know Indianapolis is just more Chicago, only worse.
I'll take your word for it. I've never been out there, and now I probably never will.
Yeah, my buddy said that recently. I was talking to him and he goes, "Yeah, I don't know what's with Chicago. I've gone, but like who cares?" And everyone's like, "Oh, Chicago's great." And I'm just like, "I don't know." I was like, I haven't done the Chicago thing. I mean, I'd like to go for the architectural history
Yeah.
because all architectural history is in Chicago, so kind of a big deal. Because they had the Great Fire right after the invention of cheap steel and concrete, so
That's
or
cool.
mass production of steel using the Bessemer process. Thank you, Carnegie. Yeah, it's so they built all these skyscrapers.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm looking for. I know it's your favorite city in the nation, but I'm looking forward to going to DC in the fall. And yeah, I've never been before. I'm sure I'm not going with my own car though. So
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
What are you doing in DC?
So it's a bus trip. So it's part of a diocesan thing. So my bishop is running a thing to the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in DC, and so we're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
check that one out. Apparently, it's absolutely gorgeous. I've never been.
Father Eric says don't get shanked, and he's
Yeah,
still
thank you.
there. So I mean,
Yeah,
he
well,
leaves
he would know.
tomorrow. So
Yeah. So maybe I'll write it to you, Father Eric, and we can both not get shanked together.
he's leaving. He's not going to be there.
No.
He's out of there.
Oh man.
He's leaving tomorrow.
Oh man. I'll have to not get shanked by myself then.
Yeah. Are you going to the cathedral too?
We'll see what we have time for because I think it's just a day trip. So we'll probably go like super, super early morning. Like the time when I went to Stockbridge, Massachusetts for that shrine, that it was kind of like you bail at like 5 or 6 in the morning and then you just spend the whole day and then you're back at like 9 p.m. or something. So that's probably what.
Yeah,
similar to
DC's
what
not far from you though, so that's not too bad.
It can't be longer than like 2.5 hours. I haven't actually done like check the map, but
2.5? That sounds a little quick.
yeah, no, you could be right. I don't
3?
really go west much.
I'm thinking it's 3,
Could
but
be. Yeah.
yeah, I'd have to think about it more. I don't remember. I used to know all the distances on the East Coast, but he's on the Jersey. He's in Bethlehem. He's outside of Bethlehem.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, you're right. It should be longer, but even still, I mean, that's
He's right
not a
by
big
the
deal.
steel stacks, which are awesome, by the way.
They are very cool. Yeah.
That was quite the thing. Yeah, I just understanding all, and the Rail Museum was great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool to see how everything was connected too. Like it was all the same guys just doing all that industry anyway. It was all Schwab.
Yeah. Well, I knew that.
Yeah.
That History Channel special, The Men Who Built America, man, that is just boom. Right. You really, I haven't done it yet. Although now it's going to happen automatically because my brain, but connecting all that to the thing that actually causes the myth of World War II, like that actual problem. I heard, so Peugeot put out, I think that was today. He put out a video, I think today, about the new Superman movie. And he was talking about myth of World War II and stuff, and he missed a bunch of stuff. And I was like, what? No, that's not. Yeah, well, I mean, if you think there's a World War II, you're gonna put everything in the wrong place, like automatically. Right? You can't talk about World War II. You have to talk about the Great War. And then, yeah, because he was like, "Oh, Superman was before World War II," and I'm like, "Well, boy, that's a tough claim. When are you locating World War II, buddy? It might be before we got in the war, but that's a whole different." Right. And if you think that war wasn't going on before the 1930s, I've got news for you. That war is a lot older than that. So yeah, because Superman
Well,
was the early 1930s. It didn't come out until
mm,
like 38. But even at 38, I'm like 1938, and you don't think the war was going on in 1938? Really? That's
mm,
fascinating. That's a fascinating way to think about the world. It's wrong, but yeah, I was a little shocked. I'm like, oh, he doesn't understand this the way I thought he did. That's fascinating.
mm. But what do you recommend as far as like just commonly referring? Would you say World War Volume Two?
No, I just call it the Great War with a break in the middle.
Yeah, but when you're referring to like um, the different, I guess, like theaters of conflict. So say
But they're
if
not
someone was
different.
talking about the
No,
Pacific.
there's no different in theater of see, this is what puzzles me. I'm like, how are you guys doing this? It's the same players and it's the same physical plays. What are we talking about? It's
Yeah,
not like someone switched sides. Like, I don't understand.
no, right. I'm saying that in conversation to refer to a particular part, would you then go and say the Great War in like as manifested in Japan? Or like how would be a way to like communicate that
Well, it depends
in a
what
way
I'm
people
what
would
I'm
get?
talking about. Like, well, first of all, Japan's just not part of it.
Mm,
I mean, there was a Pacific theater in both cases, right? But
mm,
totally different results. And yeah, Faust is Italy switched sides, kind of. I don't know about that. Of course, they weren't really a player in either act, right? Like nothing changed, right? Or at least nothing significant changed. And so it depends on what point you're trying to get across. The funny part is that Europe collapses economically and materially, but Japan goes through the meaning crisis.
mm,
Like Japan went all the way through the meaning crisis. There's something significant that I noticed that I was talking about. I forget who I was talking to the other day, but uh, Godzilla minus one, which is a phenomenal movie, phenomenal, just beyond awesome. It is so good. Um, that represents a huge shift in Japan,
mm,
absolutely monumental, because prior to a certain time frame, we'll say, and I'm not a super expert in super recent history, actually, so I'm not qualified to say when. Um, but you would not, as somebody from Japan, talk about Japan in a critical fashion. They weren't. We would refer to it as self-aware, and Japan wasn't self-aware on purpose. Like, it's part of their culture, right? Excuse me. And that movie shows that they are. And it's interesting that it's a Godzilla movie. And like you can there's so much stuff you have to understand. Like, you have to understand Godzilla in the original form is the United States. First, it's destroying Tokyo, then it's protecting Tokyo, right? Like it's not symbolic in that way. It's metaphorical, but it's not even metaphorical. It's just representative.
mm,
Right? Godzilla is this huge materialist monster with superpowers. That's the US. Absolutely. Right? And at first, it destroys Tokyo. Yes, that happened, right? And then it protects Tokyo from bigger monsters. True. It's a one-to-one correspondence. Not even symbolic at some point. At some level, it's not even symbolic. It's signs, not symbols.
yeah.
And so you have to understand that. And then you have to watch Ghost in the Shell, which unfortunately I only did like a year or two ago because of Jesse. And then you see the meaning crisis. You see them run through the end of the meaning crisis. Ghost in the Shell in 1998 is Japan, or really any country, in the meaning crisis, at the end of the meaning crisis. And now they're being self-reflective in Godzilla minus one. And I'm like, oh, there we go. Right. Because that's how you reunify, you re-enchant, and you reinstill intimacy, right? Is by becoming aware of what you're connected to. Like that's what solves domicide. So if you have an insular society that's based on an emperor, all right, or a king, really, like that's a better way to think of it. Um, and then that goes away because you're conquered militarily. Of course, you were in domicide. Like what else? What other option is there, right? And now to be self-reflective is to say, well, and they say it explicitly in Godzilla Minus One. It's such an amazing movie. Um, oh, maybe we made a mistake here, or maybe this is an error that we made. And then that type of error is reflected at three different, at least. I'd have to watch it again, but it's reflected at least three different points of the hierarchy that I can think of off the top of my head, having seen it once.
Mhm.
And it was a strange. Some of these things are strange, right? Like I go to the movies and Sarah is, hard of hearing, and of course it's entirely subtitled. It's like perfect movie for us. So it's like, oh well, that works out. We don't need special glasses or anything, and she can go to the movies again because she used to go to the movies, millions of years ago. So you end up at this deeply representative movie that has a through line from is it even the 40s? I forget when they started the Godzilla thing. It was at least the 50s, but it might have gone back further. And so you have this through line all the way through to this, realization right through Ghost in the Shell, to this realization that maybe there were errors in the system. And how do we survive? Right down to the individual person, right? Who stops being an individual in the movie. Like he's an individual, he stops being an individual and forgiving of sins, the whole thing. It's all laid out there, right? It's a very, very Christian story in some ways, right? It's all laid out there. And then he learns to reintegrate, and then he has to decide, do you still want to play or not? And then, of course, you don't know this, right? Because of the way they do the movie, but he decides to play. He decides he wants to be part of it. And you can just see the separation. And the thing that drives him is, of course, a female. Like that's what drives him back into integration. And that's why, to some extent, I hate to break it to everybody, like we have to solve the feminism problem or nothing's going anywhere. No, I think that's being fairly well addressed now by guys like Andrew Wilson and his lovely wife. But I'm not a fan of all of the things they do. I mean, but I support them generally because I think what they're doing is generally in the good direction. And how they're doing it, I think, is somewhat correct. I don't like the debate formats, obviously, but he's at least very good at it. So like he can win, which is handy. So yeah, I mean, he could go up against very good debaters and pretty much mop the floor with them because he's very good, fairly consistent. I don't know what to attribute that to, but it's always good to see somebody who can play in the academic arena, which is the arena that was created by the academics, and pretty much destroy them. I enjoy doing that myself. Probably a little too much, but also too bad. It's not my fault. I'm better than you at that anyway. So yeah, it's interesting to me that it's interesting to me that at least people are fighting that fight. I just wish it was being done differently. Right. And there's a lot more work to do. And that's, you want anxiety, having a bunch of people trying to separate themselves from their other half, as the Greeks and Romans thought of it, is not good, right? Trying to be alone, trying to be by themselves, trying to be individuals, which is an impossible situation. And it's sustainable for a short period of time. That's just not good. Father Eric, if T Swift married Travis and had a baby, America would heal. Doubtful. But I doubt she will. Yeah, I don't think that will heal America. I mean, it sure wouldn't hurt. The funny thing about Tay Tay And I do love some Tay Tay songs, let me tell you, because that's actually good pop music. Although her more recent stuff is just angry feminist garbage. Her audience is already conservative, and that's why when she got into the political fray, it didn't work, and she actually got very upset and then started to do terrible music. Which everybody misses that pattern. I'm like, man, you guys don't see anything in the world, do you? Because I saw that. And actually, it was weird too. Because I mean, normally I don't follow stuff like I like the music because I've heard it. And it's like, yeah, that song 22 is great. I love that. I love listening to that in the convertible with the top down, driving way too fast. It's fantastic. 22. Yeah, it's fantastic. And there's other songs like that too. And Katy Perry blew up in exactly the same way, which should be no surprise. But that whole thing was filmed. The minute that she switched into this political race, I think it was in Tennessee, there was a documentary film crew there filming that. And I happened to catch that, at least part of that documentary. I don't know how these things happen, because normally I wouldn't want a documentary on a pop star. Who the freaking hell cares? But I did. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's remarkable. So who needs to have a baby to heal America then? See, Father, this is where it gets tricky. So, well, and you know, like you already know, I've told you what will heal. It's the same as the answer for the Gay Pride Parade, which, by the way, next year will be tried in another country. So let's hope it works. Somebody wants to adopt it. So that's good. That's good. We'll see if it works. In a way, words got us into this, and it takes words to get us out. In a way. But the words themselves aren't going to get us out. That's where Peterson's failing. Right? And that's where Vervaeke has the better answer. But, there's so many problems because neither of them will lead. Right? And Peugeot won't lead either, by the way. So that's still a problem. And we saw that at Symbolic World Summit. We did a whole video about the failure of leadership there, effectively, which is disappointing. But I'm going to go to the next one if I can, unless they ban me or something, which I don't think they would, but you never know. The people need to be brought out of the video game reality, out of the propositional tyranny, and into practices, which was essentially the theme of this live stream, brought to you by Practices. Right? And if you didn't catch it, then I did my job. That's all I got to say to you. You want psyops? I'll show you psyops, you amateurs. They're all amateurs. They're all amateurs, Castle. Wait till they read the book. Talk about psyops. We'll see about psyops. I hate amateurs. You have to get into practices to get out of the propositional tyranny, and then you have to go further, right? And that is the whole trick. Hey, I didn't consent to a psyop. Oh no, you did. You watched, and you of all people know better, sir.
That's actually something interesting, that because I think there was one point where we had a conversation a while back where it's like it's impossible to fully consent to something because no person is what is it, like a comprehensor, one who can fully comprehend. And it's like, but at the same time, you can do a minimum of consent just enough to fall into whatever sort of trap. And it's just like, oh, I didn't consent to stepping on this set of leaves that had a hole underneath it. It's like, yes, but also you did take that step. You didn't know, it's not like you chose it, but also there's, there was a minimum there and the consequences.
Yeah. Well, you can't avoid these things because you can't know the outcome. So you can't consent to something that you don't know the outcome of, and you don't know the outcome of anything. There's probabilities, but I don't know when I do these live streams if I'm going to get sick, because that actually happened at least once. I had to run and I got back to it, but like you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the deep problem. Like you don't know what's going to happen. You have no idea. And the fact that most of the time that doesn't matter fools you into complacency and then supports this video game reality idea. And it's not, I mean, that's part of what's breaking us apart. We're all playing our own version of the same video game, we think. And then the more we look into it, we find out, oh, it's not even the same video game. And why doesn't this video game work the way my video game does or the way I thought that video game does? It's like, oh my goodness, guys, you have no idea what you're in for if you go down this road. Like you're going to become paranoid and conspiratorial for sure because nothing works the way you think it should. Like this Epstein Files thing, this is tearing people up. Like they are losing their ever-loving minds. And I have to, like, I've tried so hard to explain this to people. No, you don't understand. There's a bunch of innocent people wrapped up in this, and no laws were broken, except by the 2 people that were imprisoned. There's no one else you can go after legally. So you're really arguing over a moral issue, and you have no moral ground to stand on, and there's no moral authority because the recession of the church. Father Eric. It looks like the Trump team did a cell phone on that one. No, not at all. No, they got fooled by the legality issue, right? Everybody assumed, oh, we know this bad behavior happened. That's nice. Is the bad behavior illegal? Oh, it turns out there are no laws on the books that make it illegal. Oh, we can't use the justice system to prosecute this. No, you can't. That is correct. I'm sorry. I already knew this, by the way. Like, do you think these people are stupid? Do you think they were doing something illegal in a way they could get caught? No, of course not. They were using loopholes. No, Father, they fell into the trap that everybody fell into, which is there's bad, immoral things going on that we can everybody universally agree are bad and immoral and wrong. And therefore, we must be able to adjudicate this through the legal system. I got news for you. That ain't how it works. And even if it was, it wouldn't work because our legal system is completely broken. And if you think there's justice in the United States, I got news for you, my friend. That hasn't happened. The justice system in the United States has been very broken for a very long time. Judges flat out do not follow the rules that they are supposed to follow under the charter of the courts they're in. Ask me how I know, especially if you want to hear me get pissed off and loud, because that's going to happen. I don't like thinking about it. It's a $500,000 house. Anyway.
The thing I'm thinking about in the monologue, you were talking about the individualism thing, that you wind up kind of, as an individual, starting to put yourself in a position where you have to take responsibility for more and more things. And I was thinking about that also, this thing at the multiple layers, is that it doesn't necessarily, like, even individualism might even be, you think of like hermit kingdoms, and then they kind of like seal themselves off so much, and it's like, oh, you actually don't have any natural resources. And it's like, you're not trading with the other people, and you're lacking all the things that you actually need. And in a similar way, if you wind up kind of, individualizing yourself into even something as large as a national legal system or something like that, you still wind up pigeonholing yourself.
Right. Father Eric, fun fact, the DDF in Rome can derogate from prescription, ignore statute of limitations. It's not a statute of limitations issue. It's actually, there is no law against issue. Right. There's no jurisdiction at all. Yes, Mark, I've heard all that. Well, you have, Father, but not everybody has. Yeah, it's funny, right? So you can look at something like North Korea and say, well, they cut themselves off, and the way they control the people is by making them anxious and paranoid. And it's like, no, that's actually not true. They're confused as to why some of their people are anxious and paranoid. Because they think they've given their people a paradise where they have nothing to worry about. And from a material perspective, that's actually technically true. The reason why people are paranoid is because they're not trading and they're cut off from society. Right. And that's what's causing the anxiety. Right. It's not the government controlling you through anxiety. That didn't happen. I'm not saying governments have never done that or something, because right, but usually anxiety is a side effect of something else. It's not the intended result. And that's usually where people lose control. And if you don't believe me, you can go back 5 years and look at what happened, right? So they tried to control people through fear and it didn't work, right? They tried to cause a lot of anxiety and it didn't work, because anxiety doesn't produce a reliable result. It manifests very, very differently in different people. Father Eric, well, you're not giving me enough anxiety, so I'm going to bed.
We
Good
can
night,
start
Father.
yelling if you want.
And
Good night.
well, I already did once. And sleep well, and safe trip back to your home where you undomiciled yourself. That will be good.
Have a good night, Bob.
I'm sorry I did not get to DC. I should have done that, but I'm all over the place. I'm definitely going to go up to North Carolina and visit my buddy, though. So he's got a whole empty house. I'm like, what? Okay, well, I know that house. We'll come and stay there then. It'll be lovely. Nice. Yeah, it's quite nice. Actually, it's right on the water and stuff. So,
yeah. I'm thinking of this. I mean, just kind of the multiple, also like cutting off in many sense, like kind of cutting off the head thing is an issue, but especially even just like the higher layers, if you wind up kind of cutting off like intermediary layers, it's like, oh, well, I don't want middle management or whatever. But also the advantages of remaining connected to that. So, the Father Eric was mentioning the DDF, and there's these interesting things that I was thinking about, like marriage and like divorce versus annulment. So that's kind of a big thing that kind of comes up. And so annulment is saying that the marriage never was. And so you can have people that didn't willingly consent, or they actually had no idea what marriage even was, or they were incapable of performing some essential duty of marriage, something like that.
Right.
And the other person didn't consent to the terms of, oh, this person I know isn't going to be able to provide this particular thing.
Right.
Or, if you marry somebody and they turn out to be like a Russian sleeper agent or something like that, you could have that annulled. And that supersedes divorce. So in a certain sense, like, in the eyes of the church, two people can get divorced, but they're actually still technically married at a higher level. Mm-hmm. And so you have these things, but there was a funny case of, there was a guy who, he and his wife had 5 kids. And they, but the interesting thing was, and so he was seeking an annulment because there's this whole thing of like the marital debt. Part of that is like physical affection, but also that can include like if the man says that he's going to be the provider and then flat out refuses to work even though he can, or something like that. Like that's also a violation of the marital debt. It's a complete exchange of bodily rights, which includes this person is going to work, this person might raise the kids, whatever. And so it was funny because they had 5 kids, but he was pursuing annulment on the count of she was not rendering the marital debt as physical affection. It's like, well, but they have 5 kids. And the interesting thing is that they had those 5 kids before they became Catholic. And then they converted, and then immediately around the time of the conversion, she like completely refused to have anything to do with him. So the Pope himself annulled the marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, that was an interesting case of like, wow, 5 kids annulled, right? It was a very interesting case. But I don't know, just kind of seeing that sort of thing where it's just like, well, there wasn't even a need for a divorce. But it's such an interesting thing to see, like, oh, wow, they lived with each other for like 15 years or something like that. And then it was declared it never was, But what, county courthouse is going to wind up like handling that case,
Well, and now that the church has receded and given marriage over to the states, basically to the governments, they're not prepared to handle situations like that at all. A lot of people don't know this. Infidelity is not a valid reason for divorce anywhere in the United States, last I checked. Anywhere at all on either side. Like, it's just not a valid reason for divorce. So it's like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm fairly sure the church would have some other way to deal with. I mean, they may not, grant you a divorce, but they have some way to deal with that because that's not
Yeah.
ideal for families. But yeah, the states don't even care about families. Governments don't care about families
Mm.
because they don't think in terms of they can't afford to think in terms of families. That would destroy the government if they tried to do that. Not that they don't incentivize families sometimes, but like they can't worry at that layer of the hierarchy, which is why like this is, oh, the government should protect me, and it's like, no, the government's job is not to protect you at all.
Mm.
Right? It's to protect bigger things than any single person. And it does so imperfectly for sure, but also right.
Yeah.
And some people are more valuable than others because it's a deep hierarchy. And so
Oh yeah.
sometimes you have to protect someone's reprehensible behavior or a bunch of other things fail. That's true. Like, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. It's like in my work where you wind up seeing this thing where you say, oh, we treat all the people equally, but also if a person is a doctor or administrator, like they're just getting in the front of the line. Like that's
Right.
actually just now. It might wind up being that something is so severe that you have to address it differently. But
Right.
thinking about this, all of the police officers that I've talked to, it's just like, yeah, even in the city, they say, well, yeah, if you have a problem, like you should think about how you are going to solve that yourself before the cops show up, because it might be like 10-15 minutes at least, and then I had that myself where I was dispatching them, and it's like, oh yeah, you call for EMS for somebody, and you can get the officers on scene and they can maybe do CPR or whatever, but if you actually need genuine medical assistance in an ambulance and something, you might be waiting 45 minutes in the city. And that's not just because it isn't like, oh, they have a long trek. It's that there's 3 ambulances and all of them are occupied. So you're getting the Suburban, and that's coming from 40 minutes away.
Right. Yeah, we had that problem. I remember being in the ambulance going to Columbia, and they were talking about there's another ambulance house near this section of Columbia, we'll say, Northeast it's called. And they never answer any calls ever. It will not go out. It will not be dispatched. And they were bitching about that as they're taking me in. I was like, oh, what fascinating politics in ambulance land. Who knew?
It's totally wild.
And I was like half out of it. But yeah, I change into a completely different beast when I'm sick. It's hysterical. I like make friends with everybody and tell jokes and the whole 9 yards, because my brain's like, you must make friends with every single person around you because you rely on them to survive, sort of thing. And my whole personality changes. It's hysterical.
Yeah. It was like, I had my wisdom teeth removed this one time, and I was there like cracking jokes as I'm just covered in blood and everything. And they're like, it was such a ridiculous scene too, because they were really stuck in there, and I was having all 4 done at once, and the doctor's just there like, I'm completely. He has to use so much force that he's actually moving my entire body as he's trying to get rid of.
They did that. They did that with me, and I had to go somewhere else and get knocked out. I had to go to an oral surgeon.
Oh man.
He was great. He actually called me up a few days later and like, hey, yeah, just checking in, how you doing, sort of thing. And I was like, wow, this guy's pretty good. Yeah, because you're only going to see an oral surgeon for your wisdom teeth exactly once.
Right. Yeah.
So once he's going to take them out, and you're never going to see this guy again, because that's all he does. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never been anesthetized.
Really? Oh no, they have to knock me out all kinds of times for a bunch of stuff. I remember the first time they had to knock me out for teeth work, and they gave me this injection, and then I remember seeing, it's hard to describe, but it was different in each eye, which is even funnier. It was the same thing, but the pattern was like one, stripes were going this way, and the other stripes were going this way, right? And so they were pulsing and moving, and they were red and yellow with black lines in between, and they were like moving and stuff. And he's like, count backwards from 100. And I'm like, oh, you think I can't count backwards from 100, and then I'm going to pass out before I get to 1, huh? Yeah, I'll show your ass. But I did. To be fair, I got to 10.
Nice.
Yeah. And then it was like 10, 8, 6, 4, and that was the end of me.
Yeah.
But I almost did it. I think they were pissed. And yeah, they only did that because they had given me 2 adult doses. I was a kid. They gave me 2 adult doses of nitrous oxide, and they still couldn't do what they needed to do. Because I'm super, they're like, oh, we're going to numb him. And I'm like, yeah, but you're on my jaw. You're in my skull. Like, you can't numb those things because I can feel them physically. And so it didn't work because I just reacted as though, because I could feel everything. And they were like, yeah, we got to knock you out. This isn't working. It was like, whatever. Do what you got to do. And then they gave me this injection. And that was the end of me.
Oh, my gosh.
But that's all anxiety, right? Because
Yeah.
I was super high strung as a kid. So
Yeah.
That's why I needed to develop all the techniques of anxiety. So because I could feel them pull on my skull or my jaw or whatever, that was enough that I would fidget. And you can't fidget. They've got like major tools in your mouth. Like, you can't do that. So I forget if that was a root canal or what it was. But I've had a couple of root canals when I was young. Nothing's been wrong with my teeth since then. I mean, they're still a mess, but they haven't gotten any worse in years, thank goodness.
That's good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I think the other thing, and I mean this topic kind of comes up from time to time, but the thing about being more anxious by having more choices, or like not, whether it's having too many options or not enough constraints. I mean, that's something growing up, like I would have so much analysis paralysis when it came to things where it's just like, it's hard enough choosing between 2 things, let alone do you get like 10 different things. And I've gotten a lot better at that, but this thing of like really pursuing simplicity, and I think that's what you get a lot with these practices of, it's just like, I'm going to do a thing and then just focus on a thing, and just kind of practicing that, and also realizing you can kind of, I've used this phrase before, that you can kind of discriminate your way to victory by just cutting off all the other stuff and then just choosing the highest quality thing. But there comes a point where if you have a certain number of choices that are all roughly the same thing, you can kind of just make a decision. Like, just the simplicity of just like, we're just going to move forward and just do the thing, and also accept the consequences. Like, that's something that a lot of times, like I'll do like conflict management and stuff at work. Like I had this today, actually. There was a guy that these 2 guys got into like a minor argument because the one guy said, oh, you didn't do this thing correctly. And he was like, oh, show me the documentation where it said to do that. And he was like, oh, well, there isn't one, because it was his responsibility to do it. It was in his head. Right. And he was like, well, there is one. I don't know where you would even put that. This is just a normal thing that you would ask the client, and all this stuff. And they got into all these things. And I wound up telling the guy who was being told, that he did the thing wrong, that you just ignore him. It's just, if he actually has a problem, then he can address that. And then basically we'll tell him, you need to do the documentation on this thing. Otherwise, if it's just in your head, then you just have to do it every time. Is that the best possible way of handling that situation? Maybe there's a better one, but when I'm the only person who's managing anything and I got 20 other things going on, that's the resolution you're going to get. And it turns out that they accepted it just fine, and we didn't have any more conflict. And I mean, that might have been even a bottom 20% solution of all the possible ones, but it's the one that they got, and we were able to continue the workday, and there was no more conflict. And so sometimes just making a decision is enough.
Yeah, that's a big trope in business. It's like, fail fast, right? Make a decision fast and see the results that you can change.
Yeah.
Right. And people don't really understand. These are all the same pattern. And agile software engineering, right? Like, you get it out quickly and see how bad it is. It's like, well, I hate that solution, but it can kind of work for some things, sort of, even though it's terrible. And it is that ability to make a decision fast and see the result that matters. The problem is a lot of people can't see the result. And the other problem is a lot of people, because of the video game mentality, they want to optimize for something first. And when they optimize for something, that changes what they're doing.
Hmm.
And the more you optimize, the less you reach your goal. Because goals are not about optimal solutions at all. Goals are about getting something done. And getting something done is just which set of trade-offs are you choosing? And when you don't understand that everything's trade-offs, that's when you get into trouble, because you try to optimize, you try to make it efficient or whatever. And there's a time for that, but it's not most of the time. That's for sure. Most of the time is not the time to be efficient or optimize. And that causes anxiety, because people think they can optimize, and they're just wrong about
Mm.
that in most situations. And then whatever they do, they can never reach the goal. And and sometimes it's anger, right? Because I didn't really discuss that, but like a lot of times anxiety manifests as anger, not fear. I mean, maybe fear is the most often, but anger is a close second.
No.
When people are angry, it's often because of anxiety. Oh, the world didn't work out the way I thought, and now I'm going to find somebody to blame and be upset. And it's like, that's just your anxiety at learning that your model's wrong. That's really all it is. And that's not all anger, but a lot of anger is caused by anxiety.
Yeah, I saw this. I mean, just I bring up my work a lot because it's just all of the stuff that you talk about. It just happens there all the time, and I have a ton of examples. But thinking of it, there was one point where there was kind of there was a cracking down on people's timesheets and making sure, this stuff is going to be accurate. But it's like, I also know the reality of the fact that not every workday is exactly the same. Sometimes people have to go to the bathroom. Sometimes people need to get water or whatever. Like, you're not going to have accurate timesheets. It's
Right.
they're going to make their out of 8 hours, they're probably going to get like 7.15 or whatever, and there's going to be some other things. But I saw this where it was this kind of thing of they were checking in on people sometimes daily on like, what's going on with this, and what's going on with that, and we kind of try to like just treat people like adults and just know like, okay, when someone complains, I'll check on you. Or if there's something that it's like, okay, this has been sitting here for a week, like, what's up? But generally, people just handle it, or people are just kind of slow about putting their notes in because they got distracted and did something else. And so I'll see that something is going on, but I try not to kind of put pressure on them. But when I would see that people were focused on like the finance side, they wanted to make sure that and this is also kind of to your hierarchy video. I think this thing of like, if you're overly focusing on the finance side, and then there's technical issues that are going on, and it's like, well, and then you have to report all of those things, like all of that takes additional time, and you're also not going to get accurate reporting from the computer system either, because that's going to be timestamped whenever they officially submit the stuff, not when it happened. And so what I wound up actually seeing is that people were more anxious during that time. And some of them actually, like, I thought it was kind of interesting how quickly some people actually started snapping at the people that were kind of coming back at them. And it's like, no, this is starting to become a bit much. Yes, it was well within the right of the people who were looking into this to ask. But doing that so often, and this is another thing that's kind of come to mind for me as well, is the reverse side of where you've talked about how you implemented a change into some software that you had where it decreased the amount of time it took for connections to take place. And then it dramatically improved the efficiency and like a bunch of different percentages in a bunch of different areas. And it's like, well, the reverse is the case. If you add someone has to check every notification on their cell phone or whatever, you just slowed the connections of every other thing that they're supposed to be doing. And now you've got, I don't know what the math is and I don't care, but you could probably wind up getting some sort of average percentage of efficiency that they've just lost by introducing one extra thing that increased how quickly they can make those connections. And then seeing that they slow down, they're feeling it, and then also the thing of mirrors, right? If somebody is asking you questions or showing you yourself, I mean, that's also like, Jordan Peterson talks about that self-awareness is the same as misery, basically. And it's like, if someone keeps on going and saying, "Hey, you did this kind of slowly," or "Hey, what's going on with this thing," or "Oh, why didn't you do this?" and just people kind of posturing things that way, you're just looking at yourself in a mirror all day long. And like that, you look at the people who suffer with like narcissism and that type of thing, and it's like there's a reason why even like the Greek myth of Narcissus, like he's stuck, like what he winds up dying by looking at himself in the reflection of the water,
Right.
and it's
Right.
just like that is extremely accurate. But it's like you wind up just just drowning all of these people in their own reflection
Right.
if you wind up showing them themselves over and over and over again, and that just increases anxiety for everybody.
You exemplify. You have to. Something has to be exemplified for you, right? So you
Mhm.
mimic what gets exemplified, and then what happens with that is if it's you, it's making a copy of a copy,
Mhm.
and then you're making a copy of a copy of a copy, and you're
Yeah.
making a copy of, and we all know what happens when you do that. And then people object and they'll do, but the digital world. And I'm like, yeah, but the world is not digital. Like that's already a flat map. And also, guess what happens, Castle? More copies you make in digital world, the less
Mhm.
stable the information is.
Yeah.
People don't know that because they don't see it because it happens on a longer time frame. But it actually does happen the same way it happens with a copy of a copy of a copy of an old style copier.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the issues is people don't see these things until it's too late. Because a lot of things happen due to momentum, right? And so things that are larger have more momentum, and when they fail more spectacularly, but it takes longer. But that doesn't mean the cause wasn't way the hell back here before you even remember. And that's part of the myth of World War II breaking down. It's like, yeah, who knew that Sargon of Akkad had a T-shirt that said Star Wars is pro Jedi propaganda? 6 or 7 freaking years ago. I mean, I have 3 of them, so because I bought everything in threes. Uh, so I don't have OCD or anything, so it's fine.
Oh, of course.
I still have those T-shirts. I'm wearing one now, actually. I'm wearing that one, which is why I brought it up.
Nice.
So that sign was already there. So how long did it take the myth of World War II to break down? Was it then? Was it before that? Right? When did it happen? Oh, really? I don't know. I mean, I knew it was happening, right?
Mhm.
And even the early origins of Superman, in the very beginning, he's not a good guy.
No.
Right. And by the time it hits the comics, he is, I think. But before that, he's not. And I guess in the new movie, that's part of the theme is he was supposed to be a tyrant and then wasn't because of his upbringing, which is just hysterical because that means it's all formation. And that's one of the things no one's talking about. Not talking about mimicry. We're not talking about sacrifice or scapegoats, which is they're related. And we're not talking about formation. Those 3 things need to be discussed because that's where all the juice is, right? And so it's emerging now. So probably 5 more years, maybe something like that. I don't know. It would be nice if people would pick up on things like that instead of following the garbage. Everyone's like World War II consensus. I'm like, oh my god. And that would be okay if any of you guys had a brain, but the people we're talking about are all stupid and they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know any history. They have no idea. And I'm like, you guys are making everything worse by existing at this point. You need to stop doing that. You need to recognize, it's all these people. So I'm up in the air about the new Peterson thing that I mentioned, right? He's going to do a call-in show
Mhm.
and help people with advice. And I'm like, I mean, that's okay. I'm not a fan. I don't think he's going to do a great job with that, but I think he could probably do okay, better than average.
Yeah.
But all these people are like, well, Peterson does this and Peterson does that, but oh no, Peterson went back and he's teaching, he's doing something that looks like teaching. And I'm like,
Mhm.
really? Peterson, the world-class teacher who is world renowned basically for being a good teacher, is teaching, and you think that's good? really, Captain Obvious? Like, we already knew that. It's just, Peterson blew up, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Peterson blew up because he was a good teacher, and he put that online. That's really what happened. Like, other things also happened, but they didn't do as well as Peterson teaching online.
Yeah.
And everybody misses that part. And they go, well, he does his other things and you're terrible. And I'm like, yeah, his biblical exegesis is awful. Sure. Why would it be good? He's a teacher. Like, I don't understand. Like, why would you expect a random teacher to be good at something that isn't teaching? Are you okay? Like, do you need some help? But this is what we're stuck with. And you got all these people who don't know any history. And they're listening to Daryl Cooper, who doesn't know any history. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so dumb. Like, it's not even that what he's saying is wrong necessarily. Like, there is a point to be made about Churchill not being, let's say, the pure good guy or something. He doesn't know it. And I'm like, you freaking moron. Like, why are you talking if you don't even know? You don't even know what you're talking. It's so obvious to those of us who actually know the thing that Churchill did that wasn't good. I had an argument this is years and years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, with somebody online, and he's like, well, Churchill this and Churchill that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but they reelected him. And he's like, what? And I go look it up, dude. Like, they kicked him out of office. They figured out it was a mistake. And then they got him back in office, and he's like, oh my God, those Brits are so stupid. Like, he flipped out. And I'm like, bro, if you don't know history, you shouldn't talk about it. Like, you shouldn't just randomly spew about Churchill if you don't know anything about Churchill. Like, this isn't that hard. But we're living in this flood where everyone's talking about all the stuff they know nothing about. And that's causing lots of anxiety because everyone's creating little bubbles. And those little bubbles were wrong. And, Curtis Yarvin was wrong about everything he said 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. He was wrong. And he's admitted that, which, kudos to him for admitting that. But like, bro, everybody was operating as though this guy's some kind of guru, and he was wrong. And I'm like, man. And now he's got to come up with new stuff, And it's like, this is so bad because it's more flood. You're not making things better, but you're sure as hell making them worse, right?
Yeah, no, it really is interesting just how quickly a person can wind up getting overloaded, and just I don't know. So it's actually kind of funny. So yesterday evening, I was at this event, and it was part of the event commission that I do, but I wasn't actually on the planning part of this one. And so it was this kind of like Seagulls event thing that they had going on, and it was like a silly little Catholic speed dating type of thing. Complete sensory overload. Like, it was actually way too much. It was structured. There was structure, but also having to speed date 27 women in under an hour is like completely overloaded.
Blood.
And but I also, because my natural habitat is the flood, basically, I did find it very entertaining, but I also realized that I was like, I actually couldn't have a coherent thought about that without getting distracted, even thinking about my memory of it until today, right? Like, I just reflecting on it afterwards was just not even an option, really. It's just kind of, there's just way too much going on. Forgot basically everyone's name immediately, and it's just, I mean, you could even disregard the amount of noise of just so many people talking, but also just the fact that it was actually kind of crazy. And the thing with circles, it was a circle of dudes standing in the center that were moving one to the next with a circle of ladies on the outside, just kind of, and I was just like, it wasn't bad, right? But there was something about that I just realized there were a lot of people there that were probably very anxious because of just the sheer amount. And there was one point where I got to this one girl, and we both we're just like so exhausted that I just asked her. I said, because I knew that I was like, yeah, there's not going to be anything here. And I just asked her because she seemed completely overloaded. I was like, we can just spend like the next couple of minutes and just take it easy and just like not even talk and just, and she agreed. But I was just like, yeah, there's, maybe that could have been done better. It was the first one of these events that was done, but and I still don't even have the words for it because again, this was like a little more than 24 hours ago.
Right.
But just thinking about the sheer amount of anxiety-inducing factors that were there, and seeing that probably a lot of the people were very overloaded, and how quickly you can wind up getting there, even in something that you fully consent to and know what the structure is going to be. And then in the moment, you're just,
that doesn't
you get
help.
kind of wiped out. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the other factor is the flood. So it's the collapse of the myth. It's the flooding that's happening. Some of it's coming from the internet. Some of it's coming from the collapse of the Fourth Estate. I have a video on the fall of Fourth Estate. Everybody should watch that. It's really good. One of my better pieces, I think. All of these things, and that's collapse of Fourth Estate is also the story of the collapse of other institutions, we'll say, as well, right? Because institutions in general are going away as hierarchies collapse, as the church recedes, there's no one holding anything up, and now we have no way to prosecute the people that went to Epstein's Island, right? These are all related. They're all the same thing. It's all part of the flood. And now we have a problem, right? And the problem is that there's so much stuff out there and people think they know how it works. And then when it comes to it, they don't. The Bitcoin guys today were like, oh, I was really worried. These whales sold all their Bitcoin and I thought that was bad, but it came right back into the ecosystem. And I'm like, the Bitcoin ecosystem's closed. What are you talking about? In order to sell Bitcoin, you have to sell it to someone, and so someone else is holding it. Nothing changed. And then he's like, well, the price held up. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you increased the volume, the speed of the trade of the money. And like he didn't get it. Like he just called me stupid. And I'm like, no, dude, literally, you're the one who's a moron here. Like, you can't remove Bitcoin from the world. Like that doesn't happen. And all of your theories about how to price Bitcoin are based on that fact and that there's a limited amount of it. Right? And so what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand what you're doing. And he was very confused, and fair enough. Like, I get it, but like people don't know how things work. And I have videos on that, by the way, economy and Bitcoin money. I got a couple of they're short. Those are all the short ones because it's easy. It's really easy stuff to talk about. People like, oh, you need an economics degree. I'm like, if you have an economics degree, the one thing you're not going to understand is money and economy and commerce. Like you're just not going to understand any of that at all, because that's not what economics is about. Even though they tell you it is, like, that's not what economics is about. You're observing egregores effectively. You're observing huge things at a fractal layer that you can't comprehend, and then making very bad statistical relationships with them. And that's what's going on there. We got trouble. Sally Joe M. Cooper. AI could suddenly write code that removes Bitcoin from the world. No, it couldn't. AI does remove a bunch of working code from the world, at least lately, pissing me off. I did finagle it into fixing a bunch of stuff, though. I got to look at the other two AIs to see what they did, because I haven't. Although one of them went and like auto-tested all the connections, and I was like, what is this thing doing? No, I'm not prepared for that. Give me a second. I was like, holy crap. It's been running for 5 days straight. And then it just decided to test this connection. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I have to run the other application for you to test the connection. Calm down there, AI.
So I was also thinking this thing a little bit, also thinking about the hierarchy thing. And there's a part where you talked about how equality causes conflict. And
Yep.
I would probably also just kind of introduce anxiety into as an element of that conflict. And
Oh yeah. As you flatten the
yeah,
world, right, the opportunity for conflict goes up. That increases your anxiety. The actual conflict also goes up
yeah,
because we're living in a world of words where if you don't agree politically, I can't be your friend. I'm like,
mm,
I don't know why that would ever be the case, but I
yeah.
mean, I guess if that's the world you're living in, then I'd be pretty anxious if that were the world I was living in too.
And I think a person could probably, again, like it's been a little bit since we've done the Language of Creation book club, but really just looking at the pictures, like you can see this thing of like just you squish the equality and then everybody's underwater. And it's just like, and if you start kind of removing the inequality, it turns out, oh, even the other stuff that's underneath starts wind up getting, pulled up insofar as it participates.
Everything gets pulled up.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, have you ever seen that silly movie with Rodney Dangerfield, Back to School, where he's
Mhm.
like, he's a successful businessman, never went to school, and then his son goes to college, and then he decides to go and pursue a degree alongside his son, and he's there, and he's extremely wealthy because he's done very well, and then he's taking an economy class. And the guy's talking about like, oh, these are the different things that you're supposed to be doing, and then he's talking about like, greasing the wheels by, like bribing these guys for the permits and that type of thing. And it's just like, oh no, you're not supposed to be doing that. It's like, well, but the guy actually is doing something. Like he
Right.
actually has proof of any of these things, and he's also like making changes in the actual school itself. That's
Right.
like proving his point over and over again. And that just it's interesting, this thing as well of also being a part of different hierarchies, and then by doing that, you talked about like jumping the hierarchy as a consultant, and then kind of tying that into what Sally talked about of it's okay to be at the bottom of a hierarchy in a certain sense if you're at even just mid in some other ones. That you look at some of these things like guest speakers, where there will be some big corporation and they pay $50,000 to $100,000 to some guest speaker, and
Right.
that person is not good at what their work is. And it's like, well, that person, in a certain sense, they're being paid. They're under the top of the hierarchy, but they've kind of jumped the hierarchy of absolutely everyone else there that isn't
Yep.
paying them,
Right.
because all those people are sitting down, looking up to them, listening to
Mhm.
everything that they're doing, even when they're not even in that same like realm of competence.
Right.
And so there
And that's what people
is,
complain about, right?
no,
Because they see that. The people at the bottom see it,
yeah,
but they have no choice because they're in the hierarchy. And the guy
right,
jumping the hierarchy is still jumped the hierarchy.
yeah. And
Yeah.
interestingly, if the guy jumps it and he's not just doing it just to do it or whatever, like there's a reason why he's doing it, that everyone, even at the bottom of the hierarchy, is benefiting, but
Yeah.
also only insofar as they submit to it.
Yeah. Sally Joe. Yep. AI bros versus Bitcoin bros could be the next big thing. It's not. They're not versus. This is the funny part. They're already tying it together. Right. They're tying AI into Web3 and cryptocurrency. Right.
Mhm.
They're trying to tie everything together. It's all Tower of Babel. Right. So they don't know how anything works. I mean, actually, people who believe in Bitcoin just don't know how anything works. And the amount of cope that they have when they find out the banks are getting into the cryptocurrency business, they don't know what to do. Because they're like, well, no, this competes with banks. And it's like, no, it really, you can't compete with banks. Like, banks have to exist. The fact that you've got a different banking system and you think it's not a banking system is your mistake. It's still a banking system. Somebody's still getting paid for transactions. So it's just you think you can be a bank, and it turns out you can't do that because you can't compete with a group of people trying to be a bank. It's that simple. Like, you're one person, you can't compete with 5 people. Like, it's not gonna work. And they don't understand that principle because they can't scale things. And so they just think your cost of electricity is lower. Yeah, I'm sorry. 5 guys together gets a lower cost of electricity. How are you going to compete with that? You can't. And yeah, they're Algorand and all those things. They're tying all that stuff together. They're tying all AI and Bitcoin because it's all electronic. So all the electronic stuff. This is what's going to set up. Is it's going to be a war between the electronic stuff and the people who live in the real world. The video game reality has already come crashing down to some extent. That's going to continue.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. In the downtown area where we met the publisher, the couple of blocks away, they've introduced a hologram zoo, and I don't know. There's something about it. It's just kind of, I haven't actually been to it or anything, but you just kind of like see the little banners, everything. It's like, oh, just kind of enter into here, and then like that itself also seems to me like just kind of, I understand the whole thing of it costs a lot of money to, and also there's a lot of considerations when actually having animals in captivity and stuff like that. But also,
right,
there is a sort of thing of an enormous amount of things that you would never think would get like digitized are. And to the point of it isn't even like an actual experience. Like you can go to museums and they'll have like models of these animals or whatever sort of thing, but it's even less than that. Like it's actually just like screens and projections and stuff at this point. Like it's becoming less and less material. So you're getting also that, like you made the point before that you can become way too corporeal and like, narcissistic at that point, but also you completely lack grounding if you just kind of floated off into space.
Right. Yeah, and that's the problem is people aren't paying attention to the balance between those things. And because they don't have the contrast to see. And so Jocko Willink looks like a good temporary solution anyway. And I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying, that can go too far pretty quick. And now you're in a different situation, down a different rabbit hole, dealing with a different set of problems. And not, and that you've blown 3-4 years of your life or more, right? And that's and all you did was shift the problems around. And that's the thing. Sally wants AI, Bitcoin, kryptonite. No, that's not going to happen, Sally. They're already the same thing because they're all in the same world. They all belong to the same realm, which is the video game reality realm. It's not going to change. It's just they know it's the same. They know the tech is the same. And that's part of the flood is Bitcoin is getting tied into all kinds of things that it's not tied into. And cryptocurrencies in general are getting tied in, or blockchain technology is getting tied into all kinds of things that it has no business being tied into. I mean, they were talking today about oh yeah, we're going to track real world assets. And I'm like, but we can already do that. I don't understand why you want to do that with a blockchain. That makes no sense at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Why do you want to do that with a blockchain? I don't get it. Like you can do that with a piece of paper. And immediately they'll be like, well, yeah, but these people made up the paper. And I'm like, well, people will make up the blockchain too, guy. Like, I don't, like, what difference does it, how you record it does not solve that problem. Recording things differently doesn't actually change anything, right? Fraudster is still going to fraud. CC Moole. Some town in New Jersey is recording land deeds with blockchain, I think. Yeah, well, look, and there are certain things that it is good to record with blockchain, and land deeds might be one of them, as long as A, the paper processes are still there, and B, you have a vetting process. The problem is, and this is what they don't want. You need a centralized authority, period. Decentralization doesn't work ever for anything. And this is what people don't understand. Decentralization and individualism are the same problem. If you separate things from other things, especially if you do it incorrectly, then you're screwed. You can't transact with other people anymore. So you can make your own meme coin tomorrow. or right now, actually. You make your own meme coin right now, but that doesn't do you any good because other people have to recognize it as valuable. And the fact that anyone can do it makes it not valuable. Sally Joe, material detail is like how things are latched to the world. Yep. And that's why I like, what is that? Trompt leole, work and details like bolts that have been put on. Yeah, well, things have to fit together. And painting models and not glossy digital art. Yeah, I mean, a part of it's just the amount of work. Like if money doesn't represent a significant amount of work, it's not valuable or any kind of currency. Right. So if Bitcoin doesn't represent actual effort in the world, and it doesn't, then it's hard to know how to value it. And the fact that it's worth a lot, I mean, who cares? Like I don't know what I'm going to do with Bitcoin anyway. And it's not like I don't have any, right? But I got it all for free pretty much. So it's all free. So it wasn't worth much because I didn't pay for it. And I can cash it out at any time. And I probably have like $400 worth of Bitcoin somewhere. So what good is this? Like, because that's the real question is what good is this doing? And in the case of Bitcoin and AI, it's not doing any good at all. I mean, to some extent, just creating more work for people. But decentralization is just not good for anything. That's more splitting, more individualism, more materialism, more objectivism. That's all decentralization is. And it's not to say you should never decentralize things, but they need to be decentralized under a central purpose. And that central purpose needs to be managed by someone. That's where it's so funny too, because the Bitcoin guys all worship persons that are doing crypto stuff. All of them. Oh, this guy did this and that and these other things, and these came up with these algorithms, and it's like, okay, bro. Sounds like centralization to me. But they don't ever see it that way. And then you want anxiety, my goodness, because they don't know what's happening, and none of the Bitcoin predictions are ever correct. Like none of them have ever been correct. Like not even once. It's pretty sad. So what happens is people are just confused all the time, and that makes them anxious. Right? Is it going to go up? I mean, this guy was celebrating the fact that Bitcoin didn't go down as the result of the whales that came in and moved money. And I was like, but all they did was move money. It's not. How would Bitcoin go down based on Bitcoin changing hands? If you knew anything about currency, you'd know that the more currency changes hands, the more valuable it is because it's in use. So if you don't know that, you probably shouldn't be dealing at the level of currency. Probably get a nice job at McDonald's, ask, would you like fries with that, and be happy. Like you're not a player in that space, and you're not gonna be. The speed of money affects how much money there is or its core value if there's a cap on how much. Right. And that's just the way it works. Like that's the way it has to work in a closed system. It can't work any other way. And if you didn't know that, then you shouldn't be dealing with a closed currency system because you're just not understanding the basics. And then not understanding people are discovering they don't understand the basics. Or other people that they were following don't understand the basics. And that's causing anxiety too. Like, oh no, these basic things that we thought we understood are not this way. What do we do? And their answer is never, I was wrong. I need to reset and like not do what I was doing. Their answer is to hop to a different guru or a different system. Most people never get out of that milieu. They never escape the guru syndrome and get out and start to grow a being and do things in the world around them. They're constantly worried about wars in Ukraine and what's going on in the streets of Gaza, and no one even knows what's going on in Africa, but occasionally you hear stuff, right? or which dictator is in power in Syria or whatever. Like, I mean, the people I got into an argument on Twitter with Syria, they're like, we control all this stuff in Syria. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, we have a base. And I'm like, yeah, so does Iran. So does Hezbollah. So many countries have bases in Syria. I don't know why that's your criteria for we control them. But imagine anybody in this day and age actually believing that we had even a modicum of control over anything in the Middle East for more than 10 seconds. Like, what history are you looking at? Every time we do something in the Middle East, it's a complete flat pack disaster that doesn't go the way anybody predicted. Every time. And you want to tell me we have control over Syria? Come on, guys. Come on. You're completely nuts. You've got some kind of mental condition. You need some kind of medication. Like, over and over again. And to be fair to them, they don't want to be anxious about it. So they want to believe they know something about it. And knowledge is a tricky thing, especially when it's squished to propositions, when it's flattened down to, we'll say, the merely propositional. And that's no wonder why people are anxious. No wonder why they're anxious. I can totally understand their anxiety. It's just bad. And the internet makes it all worse because it amplifies everything. It amplifies everything to a great degree. I was talking to my buddy today, and he just doesn't understand how anything works. And so he thinks like algo and the big tech companies are doing. And I'm like, no. The stuff that you're talking about, this is all leftist, is coming out of the mainstream media, which is dying. He had no idea the movie industry was going bankrupt as a whole. No idea. He had no idea that Disney's park visitation's down and the Disney park isn't even making the kind of money it used to make. He had no idea. He didn't know that Disney bought Star Wars and in today's dollars hasn't made it back since. Like, he didn't know any of that, but he thought he did. So he was talking about it like, oh, and I'm like, Disney's gone. Like, it'll take a while for them to die, but like, they're gone. They've lost so much money recently. They can't service their debt. They're going to go into bankruptcy. There's no question about it. There's nothing that can save that company now. Nothing. And people don't know that. And fair enough. Like, you shouldn't be paying attention to that. I don't know why I was, but I did. So now we're where we're at. But stuff like that causes anxiety. And as the world flattens, there's more conflict and there's more flooding. And flooding and conflict make you anxious, or even the potential for conflict. So I get it. I get it. I really do. But what are you going to do? Where are you going to go with all this? Right? You have to stop paying attention to things that aren't near you and start helping people that are. And you have to start by getting yourself in order. I mean that technically. This is why 12 Rules for Life is so good. Because it is about putting yourself in order. And that is an important first step. Don't try to boil the ocean and drag people right into, come to church with me, right? Because that just burns them out. Right? Even if that's, we'll say, the right ultimate answer or something. I'm not saying that it is, but even if it was, that wouldn't be the right thing to do. You've got to step people through very, very, very slowly, step by step, because they're much further away than you think. And that's been my complaint for years now, especially with, Peugeot always says go to church, right? Peterson, Vervaeke, none of these guys are taking small enough steps. And they don't know that because they're not on the ground doing the work. They're observing things and commenting, but they're not on the ground doing the work. And the further away you are from things, the more you judge them and dissect them and divide them up into categories that make sense to you. And that's the worst, right? Because that's not the world. You're just creating bad maps. Cece Moole, can you give an overview of human intelligence levels as you understand to view them? Oh my goodness. Like a person's mental ability to understand what's reasonable to expect another person to know. I can try, but you'll be very sad when I do it. Um, Intelligence is a psyop and a garbage idea. And the reason why it is that way is because nobody has a good definition, and therefore nobody can have a decent measure. And the things that they're referring to vary greatly. So if you just go with IQ, because that's intelligent quotient, right? Nassim Taleb, of course, who is brilliant, has a lot of work on this. He basically explains it doesn't work. Like the IQ measures work great for stupidity. So when you get to 100 and below, they're actually good measures, but they don't work above 100. And the further you go up, the less well they work as predictors, right? So in other words, the smartest people are often the least successful people. The success of a smart person relies entirely on the momentum, right? Like what family they came from and where they started in society. That's 100%. That's not true at the bottom, right? The dumber you are, the more likely you are to be poor, for sure. That's just as useful as it will ever get. So what's the reason for that? Okay, well, because at the bottom, what you're actually measuring are constraints of thought or thinking or perspective, however you want to slice that up. It doesn't matter, actually. So the good news about me is I can give you stuff where a bunch of words are irrelevant, even though they're pointing to roughly the same thing, but not the same thing. They become irrelevant, right? Because when you deal with patterns, things coalesce. That's what patterns are, coalescing of things, roughly speaking. Moving things, though. So you have to think of intelligent quotient as a funnel. The bottom of the funnel is the low numbers. It's more constrained. So those people just don't have sets of skills. If you don't believe me, you can read the Wikipedia article on, oh shoot, is it McNamara's Morons? I think that's what it is. So they got a bunch of people in the military and they, who had too low of an IQ, and they couldn't train them. This one general was convinced they could, and it didn't work. And so I think the IQ was 80 or below, if I remember correctly, but I might be wrong. So the problem with intelligence is that no one has a good definition, no one can measure it. And as you go up the funnel, the number of things, funnels are three-dimensional, right? The number of things that could measure out at, let's just use 130, that's generally the genius level, that could measure out at 130 is not one thing anymore. It's like 12. And so you can get like I used to hang out at MIT. You can get a bunch of people with genius level IQs who know completely different things and who constantly, and they do delight in this at MIT, are trying to trip up their friends, even though they all have, you can easily trip up a guy with a 145 IQ. It takes like 2 seconds. It's also super gratifying if you're me. Probably not good, we'll say, but I don't care. I still enjoy it. I ate Jordan almonds. They're not good for me, but it happens. So that's the problem with these things. Like Einstein famously couldn't find his way home. Relativity, eh, Einstein? Like, right? So then the question is, what do we care about? Right? Well, what we care about should not be what people can understand. This focus on understanding is the problem. Like the actual problem is the actual focus on understanding. And why did I totally forgot to, you know what though? I can fix this. I can fix this. I know I can fix this. There's something I've totally forgotten to do. And now, of course, it's completely the most relevant thing. So, Castle, why don't you tell me what you think of intelligence while I set this up, because this is too perfect.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the McNamara's Morons thing. So it was, in fact, under 80 IQ is what they were looking at. So up until that point, and I think Jordan Peterson talks about this. It was either him or Jocko Willink. It was years ago, I remember. Probably both. That talked about how, for sure, Jordan Peterson talked about how if there's a person that's under the IQ of 80 or at the IQ of 80, that you couldn't train them to fold paper to fit into an envelope,
Right.
and that that he had actually attempted to do that himself, and that it was extremely difficult. And so, in the situation with McNamara's Marons, the military wasn't able to find a job for someone if their IQ was under 80, and like
Right.
they couldn't find any job for that person. And so the time was that it's if you had someone that and it's uncharitable, but the whole trope of like the village idiot or whatever, like they still had a place in a proper structure. All the things that they couldn't manage to do, that it's like, well, the other people could take care of them, and maybe they were pleasant to be around, and that kind of offset the fact that they couldn't really contribute anything as far as work went. But when you force them into an environment, also a hazardous environment where people's lives are on the line, there were cases of people trying to like train these guys to tie their shoes, and that it would be like a couple of months for them to manage that sometimes. And I think the worst situation I wound up hearing is that, well, there were two actually, that there was one where they had one of the guys who were in this program, and they put him on the outside. It was in Vietnam, and they had him on the outside perimeter of the camp. And they said, if you see anyone come here, tell them that they have to identify themselves. And if they refuse to identify themselves, then you shoot. And it was the case that the commanding officer was coming in, and they said, oh, identify yourself. And then he said, I'm not going to identify myself, you idiot. I'm the commander. And he shot the commander right there. And because he was following orders. And there was another one where there was a guy, he had a dummy grenade, and he would throw it into the group of the guys that were hanging out around the campfire. And then, they would all run away, and then they would beat him up, and he did this a few times. And he would always get beaten up, but he thought it was hilarious and everything. And there was one time where he accidentally didn't grab the dummy grenade, and he got a real one, and then they didn't have that problem anymore. And and so they wound up losing like several people because of that. And so it's unfortunate, because you put these guys in there who maybe in a village environment, like they might have gotten along with their practical jokes and stuff like that and been kind of innocuous, but you start putting them around explosives and sharp things, and it just doesn't work out. And then it's like, maybe it is the case that someone just doesn't need to be in a particular hierarchy. Oh, you're muted.
This is going to sum up exactly what I think about intelligence and the problem of intelligence in general. So hopefully everybody can hear this. It's great.
Do you understand?
Zathras understand. No, Zathras not understand, but Zathras do. Zathras good at doings, not understandings.
See how easy that solution is?
He's perfect.
That's the solution. The solution is, don't worry about understanding. Worry about doing. Because I'll tell you something about understanding. The guy who understands everything but does nothing has no value to the world whatsoever. And the person who does everything without understanding it has value to the world. It's asymmetrical, but that's the way it works. Like this obsession that we have with understanding and knowing and believing and all this nonsense, it's nonsense. It's garbage. It is how we got here. It's actually how we got here. This obsession over knowing. Like, no, it's just not required to know things. It's just absolutely not.
There's two scenes from different movies. I'm not going to have you pull them up or anything, but I was thinking of the one from Forrest Gump that always comes up, where he's, he puts the gun back together and everything, and they're timing everything, and he does it faster than everyone else. And it's the drill sergeant comes over and says, why did you put that together so fast? And he's like, because you told me to. And he's like, that's the most outstanding answer I've ever heard. If we had the money to send you to officer school, you'd be a general one day, And then the other one was still such a ridiculous movie, but Soldier with Kurt Russell. There's a part where this woman asks him, like, oh, like, asks him about his mentality and, like, if he has any emotions or, like, thinks anything. And he's just like, fear and discipline. It's just like, that's all he needed. He was the most competent character in the entire movie. And it's just like, that's all he's running. He speaks like 10 lines in the entire movie. It's just, he didn't need any of the other stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, this is why, like, I don't hate Jocko Willink or everything, but that's why that works. Because when you focus on that, good things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it might be necessary but insufficient.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he goes way over the top, but whatever. That doesn't matter. You have to find your own level, right? But that's the thing. Everyone's obsessed with what people can know. And I don't care about any of that. Like, I care about what people will do and whether or not they'll actually like do it. Like, I don't care if they know what they're doing. That's not relevant. Like, can they cooperate? That's the core question. Can these people cooperate? Because if they can't cooperate, I don't care how smart they are, they can't cooperate. Like, I can't leverage that. And if they can cooperate, I don't care how dumb they are, because I can find something for them to do. I'm not the military. Right. And some people, all they need to do is come around and be friendly. And that improves everything for everybody. I think they don't need to be able to work on the house or whatever, right? They just need to come in and cheer everybody up, right? Or go get lunch or whatever. And we can give these people places if we stop telling everybody that that certain jobs are bad and that, you tie it to status and identity. It's like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I direct cars at Chick-fil-A. I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. Like, someone needs to do that. And when it's done well, you notice.
Oh, yeah.
If you're at Chick-fil-A and you want your damn Chick-fil-A, damn it. And if no one's directing the cars, people are dumb. And right. See, here's the irony of the whole thing, right? The semi-competent, but seemingly incompetent idiot who's directing traffic, and all the quote smart people in their damn cars who would screw it up without him. Like, explain that to me. All right, I'll wait here. Right, because there's no explanation for that. Like, but there's jobs that just have to get done for the world to function. Someone's got to ask if you'd like fries with that. Otherwise, you'll forget there are fries. And maybe you would like fries with that. I don't know. Someone has to do that.
It's also funny because thinking of the thing of the guest speaker jumping the hierarchy, and in a certain sense, all these people who are patting themselves on the back for having a higher status have to look up to the guy who's directing the cars at Chick-fil-A. And it's like, in that context, he's the guest speaker that's telling you what to do, and you have to do what he says.
Right. Yeah. Right. And they're like, oh, you're stuck here working at this fast food place. It's like, yeah, without me, though, you don't get your fast food, and you're here, so you must want it. Yeah. Who's got the upper hand in that situation? I'm going to wait here while you puzzle it through.
Yeah.
Right. You can't even cook your own food, and you're worried about this person for taking your order nicely. Also, we should go to Chick-fil-A, because Chick-fil-A is how I restore my faith in humanity.
Yeah.
Well, the service is so good.
Yeah, but when they say "my pleasure," and it's just like, oh my gosh, it was my pleasure.
Weird
is what it was.
It freaks me out. I love it. I was at a Chick-fil-A once, and this sitting down and eating in the restaurant, right? And this woman comes by, and I could tell right away she had like a little portfolio and stuff. I think she was like a manager or something, and she was either doing interviews or meetings or whatever. And I don't even think this was her Chick-fil-A, right? But I slurped my drink because it was empty, and she had just gotten up, and she was on the table like behind me, and she said, "Can I refill your drink for you?" Chick-fil-A is not a restaurant where they give you service in that way.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, that would be great. I said Sprite, and she came back with a Sprite, and I was just like, what is even the world? This is awesome. I didn't have to get up and go ask for a Sprite, because you can't get your own drinks either. But they don't like come by and like, that's not what they do. You're supposed to bus your own tables and everything. Like, they'll bring you the tray, but beyond that, like, you're on your own, buddy. You know? I see this amazing place. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sally's got a nice comment here. There are certain things some people can do and others can't. People are good at some things and not others. Right. And this is the problem. There's the problem with things like IQ is there's so many aspects to the world that trying to measure those sorts of things is impossible. First of all, the people doing the work are dumb and they don't know how many aspects are out of the world. So this mission they're on, they're eminently unqualified to do. that's the first problem. Like they're the least qualified. But also it's a fruitless mission. Like, how are you going to measure how good I am at carpentry before I do carpentry with you and you get to watch? Like, I don't know how you're going to do it. Right. And this happened in the software industry, right? They kept developing all these ways to test people for programming skill. And I'm like, that's not going to work. Like, you can't do that. And they're like, no. And they're still doing it. Right. They're still like, there's elite code and all this nonsense. And I'm like, okay, but like, that doesn't tell you anything. And I did one of the last contracts I did. I went to Nashville. It was awesome. Nashville's awesome. So I went to Nashville and I go to this insurance company and they're like, oh yeah, we had hired these two superstars and they were, bringing us into microservices and cloud and containers and all this new fancy stuff. Right. And they spent $10 million, released 0 lines of code because it didn't work. And then those two guys left. They paid them a lot of money to show up there, but they left. They were out the door. And they were like, well, we're going to, we still want to do microservices. So they hired these people to help them. Their solution was, we're not going to fail this time because we're going to spend $20 million. And I'm just like, I'll tell you what, guys, give me $5 million and 6 months and you'll have your product. Because I could do that by myself in 6 months. No problem. And I could have saved him $15 million easily. But, that wasn't the point of the exercise. So I didn't make that offer. But like, we had to tell them, like, don't use containers, don't use microservices, use an older, right? It was closer to what they had been doing. Use an older architecture model that's well proven, that will work way better than what you're doing, that your engineers are familiar with. Right? Instead of this new garbage that A, won't work anyway, but B, you don't have any experts in it anymore because they're gone. So it's not like you're going to get your team up to speed. The people who knew how to do that are gone. So yeah, I mean, that's the problem. That's the problem. People don't understand that. Sally Joe, imagine judging me by my ability to verbally articulate. No kidding, Sal. Rather than my ability to make stuff for making stuff. Yeah, Sally could barely talk when I met her, and she would say stuff, and I'm like, I think it might be English, but I mean, those are English words, kind of. I mean, she's so much better now, but still, we get into this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. She wouldn't test well. I test way above my weight, so thankfully. And that's the other thing. Like, these tests are all flawed because they're based on propositions. And so what do you propositions has nothing to do with knowing. There's no such thing as propositional knowing. They're ways of informing the world. They're just bad ways of informing the world. It might be necessary ways of informing the world, but they're bad. They're poor. It's a very poor way to inform the world. It's just mere words. That's why, to some extent, a lot of people are talking about story. Right? That's why, because story is not proposition. Story uses propositions to create something bigger than mere propositions. And so I can see why they're confused, but those people are also stuck in the age of gnosis and the propositional tyranny because they think story is going to save the world. And it's like, that's not how that works, but I know how you got there. Also, you're an idiot. And it's not, because the problem is, yeah, we need a good story. Yeah, we need to replace the flat myths of World War II. There's several of them, by the way, that came out. Yes, we need that. That is true. but that's not going to save the world, right? Because people won't understand the story because they have too much anxiety to have a level of comprehension that will allow them to know where they are in the world and therefore orient and act within it. That's the real problem. It's all about the poetic way of informing the world and our lack of ability to do so. And that is also splitting us apart. Because when you don't know how to drive to Pennsylvania on your way from South Dakota to Cape Cod and actually meet Castle, you're too anxious about it or whatever, the world just splinters more.
Just let me tape your world together. Come visit me. I'll get the tape.
Yeah.
I think I have some tape. Yeah, I have some tape. I'll just tape your world together and we'll get it taken care of.
Exactly. Well, and that is the thing that people don't realize. That's how it works. The thing that binds the world together is personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is kind of irrelevant. So,
yeah.
And when you split the world on political lines, well, the thing you think of as politics is just a bunch of propositions about how people think the imaginary politics works. So it's all illusory. It's all video game reality stuff.
It's the thing too, thinking about stuff where, people are so concerned with like their resumes and that sort of stuff. And it's like, it's nice if you're using that as a tool for something in particular. But the fact is that, if you wind up like opening your own shop or something like that, it's like, well, the resume kind of doesn't really mean much anymore. Or if you specialize into something, or if you enter into a family business, or you become like a stay-at-home mom or something like that, it's like, well, it suddenly becomes irrelevant. It also becomes irrelevant. Like, I thought about this a long time ago about how I was like, and my resume is good by worldly standards, but also I kind of look at it and think like, well, I actually don't know what occupations basically like almost any of my ancestors had, like even like very recent,
Right.
like, and just thinking about that, where it's like, oh, do I, especially when, you look at like great grandparents, like, pass away and stuff. And it's like, do I care at all about what their profession was? Like anything whatsoever. And could anyone else say the same for me? Like, oh, wow, I'm so impressed about, let's look at my, at my friend or my ancestor's resume. It's like, who actually cares? That's kind of interesting if you're studying like historical figures and stuff. But ultimately, like you can't, that's also kind of supplementing the fact that, well, they seem interesting enough, but you can't have a relationship with them.
Right.
But I think of that, like, if you have friends, it might be kind of interesting if a person does something, but past a certain point, like maybe even after the first day of talking to that person, what they do for work is kind of irrelevant. And so this kind of overly focusing on trying to just collect more things to say, oh, I did this or I did that or whatever, is not the same as if, even thinking of the guys like the McNamara's Moran type guys, where it's just like, well, a long time ago, you used an example, different sort of situation, but it was like 3 guys that were working in a company, and like one guy did basically nothing, but the fact was that he just kind of sat there, and the other guys kind of like either like bounced ideas off him or just shot down that guy's ideas all the time. And so he was kind of useless, but then they wound up firing him, and then he, like, their productivity went way down. And it's like, you never know, like just having an additional ingredient, like just another person there, is often enough to wind up being like that third thing that sparks a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right.
And so it's difficult to understand this when it comes to like nonlinear scaling, even when it's just 3 people. So I see we got some activity here.
Hey, RJ. Yeah, RJ's got to watch this. RJ's gotten the personal treatment there, so he'll be fine. Talk about Mr. Anxious, though. Vantica, I've been anxious about hopping on the Discord call, to be honest. Maybe I will tomorrow. Well, you should hop on and say hi at least. There's a lot of stuff on there you can engage with if you so choose. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the anxiety is when you're trying really hard to be an individual. One of the side effects is you want to treat everybody else as an individual, but then you can't be your brother's keeper anymore. And you've already separated yourself from them, but you're also separating them from the world. And so when that happens, you need something to rely on to sort of hold things back together, we'll say, right? And that thing that people rely on is usually intelligence or freedom. And we have ridiculous no definition for either term that actually works. And so what are you doing? Well, you're trying to live in a world where you can be an individual, and then everybody else needs to be an individual because of course we're all equal. Everybody knows that, right? And then all of a sudden, no one wants to help anybody because why should you have to? Or the help they want to offer is propositional. Like, well, just tell them about this and that will cause them to act this way. And I'm like, well, if telling people things causes them to act differently, then they can't be individuals. But you haven't seen the conflict there, right? And also telling people things is cheap. Nothing to worry about, right? No big deal. So that's not a problem. Great, but it doesn't fix the world, but it does make things worse. The more conversation, the more we talk, the worse things get. And the dumber someone is, effectively, or the less intelligence they have, the more help they need from you. Right. But also the more useful they can be to you at the same time. Because if they're not constantly arguing with you about whether or not you understand something the way they understand it, the answer is no, you don't. Different people, by the way. Then the more time there is to do stuff together and to get along. And that's really the key. The key is to do stuff together and get along and make something bigger than either of you could by yourself. And you can't do that in individualism. You can't do that in an individualistic world. You can't do that in a materialistic world, in an objective world. You can't do it. I know that positionally. Yeah. Propositionally, everybody knows things. That's the problem. There's no such thing as knowledge that's propositional. I like Dr. Vervaeke, but also he was wrong about all that. It's all information. See my knowledge engine video, knowledge model video, rather. The knowledge engine model is important. And there's a live stream about it, too, that's a bit up to date, more up to date. But I appreciate the sentiment, though. Yeah, well, you have to join in, man.
Sometimes you have to just jump into stuff. Like,
yeah,
the last few days, the water heater in my home doesn't work. So, which means cold showers. I'm coming to start to kind of like it a little bit. Not enough to do that forever. But the fact is that I had done that a long time ago to actually get rid of my stutter. I had a nasty stutter where I couldn't start the first syllable. And it was sort of the analysis paralysis type of thing. And it's just like the fear of taking the first step. And I noticed that kind of issue at different layers sometimes, and I have to kind of tackle that with, slight impulsivity. But my issue was I wasn't impulsive enough, whereas a lot of times people are way too impulsive. Right. And maybe I swung a little too far in the other direction after pushing that way. But I like to think that I'm kind of a little more balanced now. But that's one of those things that did help, is taking something else as kind of like a little practice thing and then be able to just kind of go and do the uncomfortable thing, like expose yourself to minor suffering, and then kind of realize like, oh yeah, I survived, and then we can just kind of do that in another area now. And, so maybe take a cold shower before, for 30 seconds, right? Just put yourself in there and then turn the heat back on and then join Discord.
There you go. Yeah, and it's small steps and it's ordering, right? Order through sequence is important. And that's what helps you. And that's why people get caught up with, Atia, and then they get caught up with, Huberman, and then they get caught up with Willick, and then they get caught up with, with some breathing guy, right? And then they get caught up with Peterson, and then they get it's thing to thing to thing. And yeah, all of those pieces are good and important, but when they're not bound together, then you run into a problem. And having the right steps in the right order is important. And that's the issue with anxiety. So I have no anxiety, but I do have tiredness. So, Castle, what you got for closing thoughts about anxiety? And that also means for anybody in the chat, like if you have questions, you better ask them now. I'm going to shut the stream down real soon here. But I try to answer as many questions as I deem worthy, by the way, not as I can, as I deem worthy. Because if Benjamin Franklin comes in here and starts asking stupid questions, I'll just ignore them. But Castle, please give us your closing thoughts here.
I think just taking advantage of slowness and simplicity. The thing is that we've had some talk about intelligence and things, and that if you are not under 80 IQ, you can, if you're already there, then you don't have to worry about this step. But it is in fact possible, and it's not just dumbing yourself down, but you can, in a certain sense, kind of slow things down and become more simple. And in doing that, that frees up an enormous amount of headspace. So if you have a greater capacity than, the unfortunately named McNamara's morons or whatever, you can still kind of simplify yourself down to that state, even in your ramp up, ramp down time, right. Going to bed or waking up. Have certain amounts of time where you're kind of just switching your brain off and just doing really basic stuff. And by doing that, whatever that additional capacity is, isn't being occupied. And then you can use that when you actually need it. And if you get used to that, you can kind of, in a certain sense, dumb down a lot of your day. And by not having to think about everything so much, you'll actually find yourself becoming more efficient in many ways, but also, you might even take advantage of cooperating with other people, knowing that, I don't have to take responsibility for every single thing that they have going on. And by not trying to save the world myself, you can kind of shrink yourself down almost to the dumb person who needs the additional help, but you're not in a state of desperation. You're just cooperating with people, and then no one is going to be freaked out and anxious because everyone is just doing a basic low-level amount of responsibility. And you can have a lot more peace that way. So I've noticed that a little bit, locally, just in my own kind of practice recently. So it was something to maybe give a shot.
Yeah. Sally Joe's trying to troll, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Because reality isn't set. It's not pre-existent, and you are part of it. And therefore, you have a role to play in reality. And so it appears squishy. And if you're a fundamentalist, this is a problem. And if you're not, then it's not a problem. CC Mool, no questions, but you had a bunch of questions. And I don't know if I answered them sufficiently because you didn't tell me. But I appreciate the stream. Interesting discussion. Hope everybody has a good rest of the night. Well, thank you. You as well. So yeah, look, I've given you some tips here. Again, if you want a course and you're willing to pay billions of dollars, especially, let me know. And maybe I'll do it, or maybe I'll find the other one. I cannot understand. I almost never lose things like this. So I don't know what I did. But I'm going to look for it again tomorrow, I think, because that's the only day I have free time and energy, because I got to get ready for the book club on Sunday. So it's going to take up a bunch of time and energy, no doubt. In fact, I probably have to do my reading for the book club tomorrow too. And hopefully I'll have energy left to do other things. I save up all week to have enough energy to do this. So I hope you guys like it. I hope it's helpful. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everybody, because I think lowering anxiety is the most important thing that we have to do now, post fake news virus scam, when the anxiety was ramped up in so many different ways by so many different people and so many different causes and so many different events. So take this seriously. I know it's just a rough outline, basically, but also, it's a great place to start. and join the Market Wisdom Discord server. We can do stuff there, right? We can help you through more processes. I'd love to get the practices started again because we haven't done them in a while, and it'd be nice to get them started. And the moral of the story is submit and help others. And that will help your anxiety instead of trying to be out on your own. It's a big world. I don't know what the topic's going to be next week, as usual. Occasionally I do, but I don't have anything set at the moment. I'm glad I've got the hierarchy video out now. Hierarchy and momentum are super important. If you understand those videos, then that'll simplify your understanding of the world and get rid of some of your anxiety right away. I'm going to stick by that. And, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Again, trying to grow the channel a little bit here because we're stagnating again, which I don't know what's going on with YouTube. But everybody have a good week, and do remember one very important thing, and that is that the world needs you to be better, right? So you need to get better, and that will make the world better, and then everything will be better. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Friday. Enjoy.